Hey guys, tonight we're heading somewhere heavy, humid, and endlessly hostile. Forget the air-conditioned barracks and war movies that make everything look like a training montage. We're stepping into the Vietnam War, where American soldiers found themselves sweating, starving, and trying to outsmart a jungle that wanted them gone almost as much as the enemy did. You won't see polished boots or neat rows of tents here. What you'll see instead are desperate attempts to carve out some kind of shelter in a place that's soaked through every stitch of fabric and crawled into every bit of skin. Before we get started, take a moment to get comfortable, dim the lights, and maybe turn on a fan for that background hum. If you enjoy this, hit like and subscribe, but only if you truly find these slow dives into the darker corners of history relaxing. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from. I love seeing how far these late night stories travel. Now picture this. You've just arrived in the thick green chaos of Vietnam. The good news, you've got a rifle slung over your shoulder and a pack strapped to your back. The bad news, that pack feels like it's stuffed with bricks. Your uniform is already glued to your skin with sweat, and there's nowhere to rest. There are no barracks waiting for you out here. No cots, no walls, no place to hang your helmet. Just the endless jungle, buzzing, dripping and groaning like it's alive. And your job, before nightfall, is to build something that will keep you dry, keep you hidden, and hopefully keep you alive. That's where tonight's journey begins. The first thing that hits you isn't the noise. It isn't even the sight of the dense canopy or the ache in your shoulders from sleeping on something that doesn't even qualify as a surface. It's the air. Heavy, wet, and already pressing down before the sun has fully risen. The jungle doesn't let you ease into the day. It sits on your chest like a wet sandbag the moment you open your eyes. You wake up in Vietnam not because you're rested, but because your body simply can't stay unconscious inside an oven wrapped in a swamp. And your uniform is soaked through before you even move. Sweat has glued it to your skin overnight, and now it's crusted with yesterday's grime, layered on top of last week's grime. The cloth sticks in places you didn't know cloth could stick, and peeling it off feels like ripping away a layer of yourself. There is no clean shirt waiting in a drawer. There isn't even the concept of a clean shirt. You've been wearing the same fatigues long enough that they have developed their own personality. They smell like mildew, gun oil, and regret. And they're not going anywhere. You roll over, if that's what you can call the sluggish motion, and the ground reminds you what it's made of. Mud, roots, and the occasional sharp stone that has been digging into your ribcage all night. Some guys try to string up hammocks between trees, thinking it'll be a softer way to get a few hours of rest. But those hammocks just sag, collect rainwater, and become bug traps with you as the bait. On the ground, you're no safer, but at least you don't wake up with a colony of fire ants using your leg as a highway. Most of the time, you just end up compromising with whatever spot looked less horrifying the night before. By morning, you regret every decision that led you here. The soundtrack of the jungle doesn't wait for you to fully wake. It never stops. The high-pitched drone of insects is constant, like an orchestra of angry dentists all drilling at once. Add in the calls of birds that sound less like songs and more like taunts, and the occasional distant thud that you pray is just a tree branch falling and not something worse. Every sound is amplified in the sticky air. Every movement feels like it's happening inside your own skull. You try to cover your ears, but that just traps more heat against your head. So you give up and let the jungle scream at you. Mosquitoes are waiting for you before your eyes are even open. They don't care that you slept next to a fire the night before. They don't care that you doused yourself in repellent that barely works. They're here for breakfast, and you're the buffet. You slap at your arms, your neck, your face, but it doesn't matter. There's always another wave. You've already got so many bites that it's impossible to tell where one welt ends and another begins. Scratching only makes it worse, and no matter what anyone says, the jungle never stops itching. The heat mixes with the smell, and the smell is a punishment. Damp uniforms, rotting vegetation, sweat baked into fabric, unwashed bodies all pressed together in a humid greenhouse. Even your boots reek, and you'd swear the stench has a personality of its own, creeping into your nose until you taste it. Every breath feels like drinking hot, dirty water. You've never wanted air conditioning more in your life, but out here, that's not even a fantasy. It's like remembering the feeling of snow while your skin peels from sunburn. You sit up, and your helmet immediately slides forward because the strap is slick with sweat. The metal is hot even though the sun hasn't been up long. You push it back, wipe your forehead, and now your hand is covered in mud because nothing is ever dry. Your rifle is next to you because it has to be, but it's no better. The weapon is coated in condensation, a thin film of water forming just from being in the air too long. If you don't wipe it down constantly, it jams. And out here, a jammed rifle isn't just an inconvenience, it's a death sentence. So before you even think about food, water, or moving, you're already cleaning metal in the swamp heat, trying to keep it alive because it's the only thing keeping you alive. Breakfast isn't breakfast. It's whatever is in your rations, which you pull out of a pack that smells worse than your boots. Maybe it's canned meat that looks like it was made by someone who hates both food and soldiers. Maybe it's crackers that have absorbed so much moisture they crumble like wet chalk. Whatever it is, it's warm because everything is warm. And it tastes like cardboard that was soaked in brine and left out in the sun. You eat it anyway. Not because you want to, but because you don't have a choice. Hunger in the jungle is unforgiving, and calories are survival, even if those calories taste like punishment. Water is worse. Every canteen sip is a reminder of how fragile your luck is. The water might be boiled, might be treated with iodine tablets, but it still tastes like a swimming pool filled with rust. It coats your tongue in bitterness, leaves your stomach churning, but it's still better than the alternative. Drinking straight from a stream here is a quick way to make sure you don't get out of bed the next morning. You try not to think about what's upstream, about what's rotting or festering in the water. You just swallow, grimace, and tell yourself it's fine. The air grows thicker as the sun climbs. It's not just hot, it's suffocating. Every inch of your skin drips. Your boots feel like steam chambers. The canvas and leather hold in sweat until your socks are soaked and your feet are pruning inside. Trench foot isn't some story from the old wars. It's happening to you right now, slowly eating at your skin while you walk. You peel off your boots to check, and the smell alone is enough to make you gag. Your feet are pale, wrinkled, soft in ways they shouldn't be. You dry them out as best you can, but they will be wet again within the hour. That's just the way it is. There's no such thing as waking up refreshed. Out here, you just wake up less exhausted than you were the night before. Your muscles are stiff from lying on uneven ground. Your back aches from carrying a pack that feels heavier every day, and your head is pounding from dehydration and noise. But you don't get to rest. You stand up, stretch as best you can, and immediately feel the weight of the jungle pressing down. The vines tug at your gear, the mud grips your boots, and the humidity makes your lungs feel like they're inhaling soup instead of air. Privacy doesn't exist. You're surrounded by other soldiers, all of them just as miserable as you are. Some are shaving with dull razors in puddles of brown water. Others are trying to patch holes in their clothes with sewing kits that were never designed for fabric this destroyed. Everyone smells the same, everyone looks the same, and nobody says much in the morning. Conversation is wasted energy, and energy is rationed more carefully than the food. Then there's the jungle itself, alive in every direction. Vines dangle like ropes, ready to trip you. Spiders the size of your hand crawl into boots if you forget to check them. Leeches wait in the mud for your ankles, invisible until you feel them sucking. Every step is a gamble. Every patch of grass might hide something with venom or teeth. You don't think about it constantly, but it's always there, in the corner of your mind, gnawing at your nerves. And the heat keeps climbing. It's not like summer back home, where you sweat and then cool down. Here, you sweat until you're drenched, and then you keep sweating until your body feels hollow. Your uniform never dries. It's always clinging, always heavy, always smelling worse. You wipe your face with a sleeve, but the sleeve is wetter than your skin. You wish for a breeze, but breezes don't exist here. The air just hangs, still and oppressive, like the jungle is deliberately choking you. By the time you've forced down your food, checked your gear, and pulled yourself upright, you're already drained. The day hasn't even begun, but it feels like you've run a marathon inside a sauna. You look at the men around you, and they look back with the same hollow-eyed exhaustion. Nobody says it out loud, but everyone knows the truth. The jungle won't let you win. It just lets you survive another morning so it can break you down piece by piece. And then you start moving, because standing still feels worse. Your boots squelch in the mud, the pack digs into your shoulders, and the insects never stop swarming. The day has begun, not because you're ready, but because the jungle doesn't care. The air never feels clean. Every breath is thick, wet, and carries with it the scent of a world that's both rotting and alive at the same time. It's impossible to separate the smells out here. They fuse together into a single suffocating blanket that wraps around you and refuses to let go. The first layer is earth, rich, dark soil that's been soaked by rain, stirred up by boots and packed down by years of monsoons. It should smell like farming country back home, the kind of fertile ground that grows corn and wheat. But here the wet earth is sharper, heavier, and laced with the stench of things dying just beneath the surface. Leaves fall constantly, layering over each other until they're pressed into a mushy mat of decay. Step anywhere, and the jungle exhales a breath of rot. It clings to your boots, your clothes, and eventually your skin. Even when you wash with whatever water you can find, the smell doesn't leave. It's under your nails, stuck in your hair, soaked into every pore. You carry the jungle with you, whether you want to or not. But the earth isn't the only thing you're breathing. Gunpowder mixes in, sharp and metallic, even when you haven't fired a shot. The jungle holds on to smoke like a jealous hoarder. One burst of fire from the night before lingers in the air long after, drifting into the trees, curling through the vines, and sticking to your clothes like invisible soot. You taste it in the back of your throat every morning, The tang of cordite becomes part of your saliva. When you swallow, it burns just a little, reminding you that the war doesn't stay silent, even when it seems like the guns are resting. Layered on top of the rot and the smoke is the human element. Men packed together, sweating endlessly, unable to wash properly for days or weeks at a time. The smell of bodies isn't just sweat, it's mildew in uniforms, feet rotting in socks, unshaven faces slick with oil, and the faint sourness of breath after chewing canned rations that should have expired years ago. You don't notice your own smell after a while, but you notice everyone else's, and they notice yours. There's no escaping it. The air between you becomes a cloud of human survival, heavy and sour. Some days the smell changes suddenly. That's when you know something is wrong. The scent of fire drifts in stronger, acrid smoke, cutting through the natural odours of the jungle. Sometimes it's distant. Napalm laid down miles away, but still potent enough to sting your eyes. Napalm doesn't just burn. It smells like the world itself being boiled alive. You don't need to see it to know where it landed. The smell rides the wind, and every soldier who's been around knows what it means. Trees turn to torches, soil scorched black, everything it touches erased. You can smell it before you ever see the blackened patch of ground left behind. Other times, the change comes from closer at hand. A burst of gunfire, the echo of grenades, and then the unmistakable scent that every man dreads, blood. It doesn't take much. A single wound in the heat turns metallic, coppery, overwhelming. The jungle magnifies it. Blood doesn't fade here. It spreads, carried by damp air and swarming insects. Even a small cut draws an army of flies, and suddenly the whole area smells faintly of iron and decay. You try to ignore it, but it finds its way into your nose, your mouth, your memory. Once you've smelled blood in the jungle, you never forget it. And then there's the enemy, invisible but always present. The Viet Cong move through the same ground, live in the same heat, breathe the same air. But somehow you swear you can smell them even before you see them. Maybe it's just nerves, maybe it's the way the jungle carries odours differently, but sometimes you catch a faint whiff of smoke, of cooked rice, of sweat not your own, and you know they're nearby. It doesn't have to be strong. Just the faintest hint. And suddenly the jungle feels smaller, the air tighter, and every sound sharper. The worst, though, comes after firefights. When the jungle isn't just wet earth and sweat anymore. The smell of war doesn't drift away when the guns go silent. It lingers in the trees, in the mud, in your uniform. Smoke, blood, cordite, the sourness of fierce sweat, the heavy stink of bodies that aren't moving anymore. It seeps into your nose until you can't tell where the jungle ends and the war begins. You try to breathe shallow to avoid it, but you can't. It's inescapable. Every soldier learns to live with it. You can't fight it. There's no clean breeze, no fresh sheet to bury your face in, no spray of cologne to cover it up. Even the cigarettes guys chain smoke don't mask it. They just add another layer, the burnt tang of tobacco mixing with rot and cordite, until it all becomes one foul perfume. Some men say they stop noticing after a while. Others say they notice it more every day, that it eats at them like a parasite lodged in their sinuses. Either way, it never goes away. Sometimes, when you try to rest, it follows you into your dreams. You're half asleep, lying in the mud, and suddenly the smell shifts. Stronger, sharper, making you think something's wrong. You jolt awake, heart pounding, rifle in your hands. only to realise it's just the same jungle air it always was. The wall never lets you forget where you are, even when your eyes are closed. And the jungle never makes it easy. Rain falls, pounding the earth until it releases new smells, wetter, heavier, filled with mould and fungus. Tents and ponchos don't block it. Your nose fills with dampness so strong it feels like you're breathing through a sponge. The ground squishes under every step, and the mud carries its own smell, half swamp, half sewer. It clings to your boots, your clothes, and when it dries, it flakes into dust that you end up breathing in anyway. Then there are the animals. The smell of dung from wild pigs, the musky stink of monkeys moving in the trees, the sour odour of bats overhead at night. Everything alive leaves a trace, and when the air is already packed with rotten sweat, the animal scents just layer on top, like insults added to injury. Some of the guys joke about it, saying they'll never complain about the smell of New Jersey again when they get home. But the jokes don't make the air any easier to breathe. You tell yourself you'll get used to it, that after a few weeks your brain will filter it out. But that never really happens. If anything, your senses sharpen. You start to notice tiny shifts, the difference between the smell of rain about to fall and rain that's just stopped. The faint warning of smoke that doesn't belong to your unit. The sudden sourness that means something died nearby, whether it's an animal or something worse. The smell becomes a language you're forced to learn, whether you want to or not. And through it all, the wet earth remains, the constant, unshakable foundation. You wake up with it, you carry it on your boots all day, and you breathe it in all night. It's a reminder that you're not in control here. The jungle is. The earth has been swallowing leaves and rain and animals long before you arrived, and it'll keep swallowing after you're gone. Every soldier feels it eventually, that the ground itself wants to pull you down, grind you into the same mulch as everything else. The smell makes sure you don't forget. There's no relief, no escape, no moment of fresh air. You breathe the war in with every inhale, and the jungle makes sure it never leaves you. Finding a place to stop in the jungle isn't like looking for a nice campsite in the woods back home. There is no open meadow, no flat clearing where you can pitch a tent and gather around a fire. Out here, every step is tangled with vines, blocked by trees, or sinking into mud that swallows your boots. Searching for a spot to survive is more about choosing which misery you can tolerate the longest. The first thing you notice is that nothing is level. The ground rolls and twists in uneven mounds, tree roots pushing up like knotted bones, holes dug by animals waiting to trip you, and puddles left by the last rainfall, which was probably 10 minutes ago. You might find a patch that looks flat enough, but when you put your pack down, it sinks halfway into the muck. You're never sure if you've picked a floor or a swamp until you step on it. Every soldier learns quickly that higher ground is safer. Low spots turn into ponds overnight. Even a small dip will collect enough water to drown your gear and soak you until you're shivering in clothes that never dry. But higher ground comes with its own problems. It's usually more exposed, more visible, easier for the enemy to spot. So you're stuck balancing between drowning in a mud hole or risking being seen. Neither option is good, but you pick the one that feels less fatal. Clearing space is the next battle. The jungle doesn't want to give you an inch. Thick undergrowth tangles around your legs, thorned vines grab at your sleeves, and bamboo shoots spring up so tight together you can barely swing a machete You hack and hack until your arms feel like they're going to fall off, and even then, the space you've made is just big enough to crouch in. Sweat pours down your back, soaking your shirt until it's plastered against your skin. Every swing sends insects scattering, and half of them land on you as if you've just invited them to dinner. And then there are the snakes. Every patch of ground looks like it might be hiding one. Long, thin shapes that slide silently through the underbrush, some harmless, some venomous enough to end you before the medic even has time to reach your side. The problem is, you don't know which kind you're looking at until it's too late. So when you search for a spot, you're not just clearing plants, you're clearing death coils that blend perfectly with the vines. One wrong step, and the search ends in a way nobody wants. Even if the snakes don't get you, the leeches might. They wait in the wet ground, in the puddles, in the grass, invisible until they latch onto your skin. You don't feel the bite at first. You just notice the itch, look down, and there it is. A black slug clinging to your ankle, drinking its fill. You rip it off, throw it away, and another one takes its place. After a while you stop caring. Blood running down your leg becomes just another part of the day. But when you're choosing a place to stop, you pray for ground dry enough to keep the leeches at bay, even if you know it's a hopeless wish. Trees are both a curse and a blessing. They're everywhere, and they make the air feel even heavier, trapping heat beneath the canopy. But they also offer the only real cover you can get. Pick the wrong spot out in the open, and you're a target. Settle under the right cluster of trees, and you've at least got a chance to hide from eyes in the distance. Some men try to use the trees as anchors, tying ropes to them, stringing up ponchos between them, or hanging hammocks that sag lower with each passing night. The trees don't make it comfortable, but they make it possible. The smell of the ground tells you more than your eyes do. If it reeks of rot stronger than usual, there's a good chance you're standing over soil that won't stay solid. If it smells sharp, almost chemical, it might mean something died nearby, and that's not ground you want to share. You learn to trust your nose as much as your eyes. Every patch of dirt is a gamble, but some gambles are worse than others. Silence is just as important as cover. The jungle is never truly quiet, but it has its rhythms. Frogs croak, insects buzz, birds screech at each other in the canopy. If you're searching for a spot and suddenly the noise changes, drops off, or shifts in tone, you know you're in the wrong place. Something else is moving there, something that doesn't want company. Sometimes it's animals, sometimes it's worse. Either way, you back out and look again, even if it means another hour of stumbling through vines. The sun doesn't help. It cuts through the leaves in sharp beams that only make the humidity worse. You're drenched, panting, dragging your gear with you, and still the ground refuses to give you anything decent. By midday, you're exhausted, and you still haven't found a spot that feels safe. The temptation grows to just drop your pack, collapse, and say this is good enough. But good enough in the jungle usually means waking up in 3 inches of water or with a centipede crawling into your boot. So you keep moving, even though every step feels heavier. Sometimes you stumble onto signs that someone else has been there before. A patch of ground that looks trampled, branches cut with tools, or worse, the faint impression of footprints in the mud. You freeze, your stomach twisting, because it doesn't matter if they're days old or hours old. It means the enemy could be near, and suddenly the spot you thought might work feels like a trap. You move again, faster this time, even though your body screams to stop. And then, when you finally find something close to tolerable, you realise the ground is alive in ways you didn't notice at first. Ants pour out of holes like black rivers, biting anything in their path. Termites chew through fallen branches with a sound like static. Beetles the size of your thumb crawl under your gear the moment you set it down. You tell yourself it's fine, that you can deal with bugs. But when you're lying in the dark later, and they're crawling across your face, you'll regret it. Still, you settle anyway, because there's no such thing as a perfect spot in Vietnam. There's just a spot that makes you hate life slightly less. The process never gets easier. Every time you move, every time you search again, it's the same endless fight with the jungle. And no matter how carefully you choose, the ground still floods, the trees still drip, and the insects still invade. You're not finding a home. You're just finding the next place where you can collapse without dying immediately. And even as you settle, even as you drop your pack and start clearing a space to build, the back of your mind whispers the same thought. It's only temporary. The jungle doesn't let you stay anywhere for long. Once you've finally picked a spot that feels like it won't drown you overnight or leave you completely exposed, the real work begins. The jungle doesn't just hand over a piece of land and say, "Here you go, soldier, enjoy your stay." It makes you fight for every square foot. And the first fight is with the things that are already living there. The creatures that don't care about your orders, your fatigue, or your need to survive. They've been here longer than you, and they're not giving up their ground without a struggle. The snakes are the first problem. Not because they're everywhere, although they often are, but because you never know which kind you're looking at until it's too late. Some are harmless, slithering away the moment you stomp into their space. Others carry enough venom to shut down your nervous system before the medic even has time to open his kit. Out here the difference is academic. If it moves like a snake, it's treated like a threat. You swing your machete or jab with your entrenching tool, trying to send it running or cut it down before it gets close enough to do anything worse. The ground is littered with leaves and vines, and half of them look like snakes even when they're not. You take a step, hear a rustle, and your heart stops. Your boots freeze mid-stride, sweat pouring down your neck as you wait for the shape to move again. Sometimes it doesn't, and you feel stupid for nearly jumping out of your skin over a root. Other times, the leaves part and you see scales, glossy and wet, disappearing back into the underbrush. It doesn't matter how many times it happens. Your pulse never slows until you're sure the thing is gone. The worst are the ones you don't see until you're already kneeling down, clearing brush with your hands, and suddenly there's a coil tucked under a log, waiting, silent. You scramble back, curse loud enough for the whole unit to hear, and only then realise how close you came. Every soldier knows someone who wasn't quick enough. A bite, a scream, a frantic attempt to cut the wound or suck out the poison, and then the grim silence that follows. Medicine helps if you get it in time, but in the middle of the jungle, time is usually the one thing you don't have. So you keep cutting, hacking away at vines, slamming your boots against the ground to make noise, hoping the snakes get scared enough to retreat before you stumble onto them. The machete becomes less of a tool and more of a lifeline, every swing a warning to whatever might be lurking. You clear the brush, not just for space, but for peace of mind, even though the peace never lasts more than a few minutes. Then there are the leeches. Snakes you can see. Leeches are ghosts until they've already attached themselves. The jungle ground is crawling with them, especially after rain, which is every day. They lurk in puddles, cling to blades of grass, hang from branches waiting to drop onto your neck or crawl down your collar. They're small, silent, and patient. You don't feel them bite. You only notice when the itch starts, or when your socks squish differently than they should. You pull off your boot and there it is, a fat black worm latched onto your ankle, swollen with your blood. You rip it off, flick it away, and blood runs freely from the wound, because leeches inject a chemical that keeps it flowing long after they're gone. You curse again, slap on a bandage, and keep working, but the jungle doesn't care. Another leech is already crawling toward your other foot. Some guys try to burn them off with cigarettes, but half the time that leaves a blister worse than the bite. Others salt them, if they have salt to spare. Most of the time, you just tear them away and deal with the blood. The problem isn't the bite itself, it's the infection that follows. Every open wound out here is a welcome mat for bacteria. Scratches, cuts, leech bites, they all fester fast. By the next morning the itch has turned into a throb, so the skin swollen, hot to the touch. You wrap it tighter, clean it with what little you've got, but it's never enough. The jungle eats at you slowly, one bite at a time. Clearing ground means exposing yourself to more of them. Every log you roll over releases another cluster. Every patch of grass you slash open sends leeches squirming in every direction. They don't scatter like snakes. They come toward you, relentless, sensing the heat of your body, the smell of your sweat. You stomp them into the mud, but you know you didn't get them all. You never do. And still, you have to keep going. The vines have to be cut back, the brush hacked down, the ground levelled enough to set up something that resembles shelter. You swing until your arms ache, until the machete feels like an anchor, dragging you down. Sweat runs into your eyes, stinging, blinding, forcing you to pause just long enough to wipe it away before the insects find your face. Your hands blister under the handle, but gloves are more of a luxury than a reality. The skin tears, the blisters pop, and the machete keeps swinging anyway. Every stroke of the blade releases new smells from the plants. Some sharp and green, others foul, almost chemical. Sap splatters your arms, sticky and irritating, drawing more bugs to land and bite. You don't know which plants will give you a rash until you've already got one. The jungle is a guessing game with no answers, and every mistake costs skin, blood, or both. The sound of hacking carries, echoing off the trees, making you wonder if someone else is listening. The Viet Cong don't need much of an excuse to move closer, and the noise of machetes is like a beacon. But you can't clear ground silently. Every swing announces your presence. Every thud tells the jungle exactly where you are. You just hope the canopy is thick enough to hide you, and that luck is on your side, because the alternative is worse than snakes or leeches. By the time you've cleared enough space to drop your pack, you're exhausted. Your arms shake, your back aches, and your legs are covered in scratches, bites, and welts. Blood seeps through your socks from leech wounds, and you can feel new ones crawling up your calves. You rip them off, cursing, and smear mud over the bites, because that's all you can do in the moment. The ground is still uneven, still damp, still alive, but at least now it's yours. For a little while. And then you look around at the rest of the jungle, endless and unmoved, and realise you've cleared nothing more than a tiny island in an ocean that doesn't care. The snakes are still out there. The leeches are still waiting. Tomorrow they'll crawl back in, reclaiming what you fought to carve out. But for now, this patch of misery is where you'll try to survive the night. When you finally carve out enough space to breathe, your next thought is simple. How do you turn this patch of mud and misery into something resembling shelter? That's when bamboo becomes both your best friend and your worst enemy. It's everywhere, so thick it feels like the jungle planted it, specifically to make your life difficult. But it's also one of the only resources that lets you build anything that stands for more than an hour in the rain. Soldiers joked about it being the Swiss Army knife of the jungle, but the truth is, without bamboo, half the makeshift shelters out here would never exist. The stalks grow in dense clusters, shooting up straight and tall like nature's own scaffolding. At first glance, they look fragile, thin compared to the thick hardwood trees around them. But the first time you try to chop one down, you realise just how wrong that assumption is. The stalks are hard, fibrous and springy, bouncing under each swing of your machete like they're mocking you. You strike once, twice, 10 times, sweat pouring into your eyes, arms trembling, and still the bamboo holds on, refusing to fall. When it finally gives, the crack echoes through the jungle like a rifle shot, and you're left panting, wondering if the noise carried farther than you can afford. Once it's down, though, you see why bamboo is worth the trouble. It's light enough to carry without breaking your back, but strong enough to hold weight. The hollow inside makes it easier to cut into sections, and each piece can be turned into something useful. Poles for the frame of a shelter, slats for flooring, stakes to anchor ropes, even crude utensils if you're desperate enough. Bamboo becomes whatever you need it to be, as long as you're willing to put in the work to shape it. But shaping it is another battle. The fibres splinter easily, sending thin slivers into your skin that fester almost immediately in the damp air. You pull them out with dirty fingers, curse at the sting, and keep going because the shelter isn't going to build itself. Every cut of the machete releases a sharp, green smell, a mix of fresh grass and bitterness that clings to your hands. Your arms ache from sawing through stalk after stalk, stacking them into piles that never seem big enough. The soldiers who had been out here longer learned tricks with bamboo that felt like magic to newcomers. They could split a stalk into strips with a few careful strikes, weaving them into mats that became walls or flooring. They knew how to lash pieces together with vines, tightening the frame until it held steady under the weight of ponchos and gear. Some even carved the ends into spikes, driving them into the ground as anchors that stayed firm in the mud. Watching them work was like seeing a carpenter with an infinite toolbox, except the toolbox was just bamboo and sweat. Of course, the same qualities that made bamboo useful also made it dangerous. The locals knew how to turn it into weapons, sharpened stakes hidden in pits, waiting under a layer of leaves for some unlucky soldier to step through. Punji sticks, they were called, coated with filth to make infection inevitable. Every time you cut bamboo, you couldn't help but think of how easily it could be used against you, how the same material that held up your shelter might be waiting as a trap 100 yards away. The jungle didn't let you forget that nothing was neutral here. Everything could save you or kill you, sometimes both in the same day, and bamboo was loud. Every break, every split, every crack carried farther than you wanted. The jungle muffled footsteps and swallowed voices, but the sound of bamboo snapping was different. It was sharp, unnatural, a signal that something was being built where nothing should be. You worked quickly, trying to cut what you needed and move on, but every strike felt like it echoed into the trees. Still, you couldn't avoid it. You needed something to hold up the roof over your head, something to get you off the mud, something to keep your gear from sinking into the ground. Bamboo became the skeleton of every temporary refuge, the backbone of survival in a place that refused to give you anything willingly. You learned how to carry stalks on your shoulder, balancing the weight with your rifle, stumbling through vines while sweat stung your eyes. You cursed it with every step, but you kept carrying it because there was no other choice. When the shelter started to take shape, bamboo transformed from raw stalks into order, a fragile kind of order in the chaos. Poles lashed together into a frame, angled just enough to hold leaves and ponchos against the rain. Cross-sections laid on the ground so you weren't sleeping directly in the muck. Stakes hammered deep to keep it from collapsing in the first gust of wind. It never looked like much, just a few pieces tied together in a clearing that still smelled like snakes and leeches. But out here, it was the difference between lying in mud all night or having a place, however crude, that felt like it belonged to you. And yet, the jungle reminded you of its patience. No matter how strong you built, the bamboo bent under the weight of rain, sagged under the press of leaves, and creaked like old bones in the night. You woke to find parts of the frame slipping, knots loosening, poles sinking into softened ground. You fixed it, reinforced it, cursed it, and accepted that nothing you built would last more than a few days. Bamboo was never permanent. It gave you just enough structure to survive until you had to move again, and then you left it behind for the jungle to reclaim. You learned not to see bamboo as a solution, but as a compromise. It wasn't a house, it wasn't protection, it wasn't safety. It was a stopgap, a temporary skeleton you could cling to for one more night. And in Vietnam, one more night was sometimes all you could ask for. The machete is supposed to be your lifeline in the jungle, a blade that cuts through the vines, clears a path, and shapes bamboo into something useful. At least, that's the idea. In reality, the machete is more like a dull piece of metal strapped to your side that barely keeps up with the demands of the jungle. The edge wears down fast, the steel chips against tough stalks, and by the end of a single day, it feels more like you're beating the vegetation into submission than cutting it. You start swinging, and at first it feels manageable. The blade slices through thin branches with a clean snap, but the deeper you go, the thicker it gets. Vines coil like ropes, tougher than you expect, wrapping around your arms, your pack, your legs, and the machete just glances off. You swing harder, sweat stinging your eyes, arms aching, and the blade sticks halfway, forcing you to wrench it free with a grunt. The rhythm you imagined never arrives. Every cut is a fight. The bamboo makes it worse. Fresh stalks are green and fibrous, bending under the blade instead of breaking clean. You chop again and again, the machete slipping, sliding, biting in shallow grooves that don't get you anywhere. When it finally cracks, it's not from the sharpness of your tool, but from the sheer force of your exhaustion pounding through it. The crack echoes, a sharp reminder that you've just announced your location to anyone listening. Sharpening is an endless chore. You carry a whetstone or file, squatting in the mud, dragging the blade across again and again, while mosquitoes feast on your neck. You test the edge on a vine, and it still feels blunt. You sharpen again, but the jungle doesn't care. The plants here chew up steel faster than you can keep it sharp. By the time you've cut down enough bamboo for a frame, the machete is dull all over again, the edge shining with dents and chips that no stone can truly fix. Hauling what you cut is its own punishment. A single stalk of bamboo might not seem heavy, but when you're carrying 6 or 7 balanced awkwardly on your shoulder, the weight drags you down with every step. The stalks knock into branches, catch on vines, jab into your ribs when you lose balance. You stumble forward, boots sinking into mud that grips like glue, and the bamboo digs into your skin until it feels like your shoulder is on fire. Switching sides only delays the pain. The straps of your pack dig into one shoulder, the bamboo carves into the other, and your back feels like it's splitting in half. You try to walk carefully, but the ground doesn't cooperate. Roots snag your feet. Mud slides under you. Puddles swallow your boots. The bamboo tilts, catches, and suddenly you're stumbling, falling forward, barely catching yourself before your face hits the ground. You curse, haul yourself upright, and keep going because the shelter won't build itself. Every soldier nearby is doing the same, grunting, sweating, dragging stalks one by one, like an ant colony forced into endless labour. Nobody complains out loud, because complaining doesn't change the work. But the silence between grunts says everything. The machete never leaves your hand. Even when hauling, you keep it close, because the jungle doesn't stop throwing obstacles in your path. Vines lash across your legs, thorned branches tear at your arms, and the blade swings out again, dull or not, hacking just enough to clear space. The edge catches, bounces, and every hit sends vibrations up your arm until your elbow feels loose in its socket. You grit your teeth, tighten your grip, and keep cutting, because the alternative is being strangled by the jungle one vine at a time. Blisters bloom fast. The handle of the machete rubs your palms raw, skin peeling, blood mixing with sweat. You wrap your hands with rags torn from a spare shirt, but the fabric soaks through quickly, becoming slick, useless. The blade slips in your grip, nearly flying from your hand on a particularly hard swing. You hold tighter, knuckles white, muscles screaming. The machete is supposed to be an extension of your arm, but it feels more like a weight dragging you down. Every soldier develops his own rhythm, some swinging short and fast, others slow and heavy. Neither works better than the other. The jungle doesn't care about rhythm. It grows back overnight. New vines crawling into the space you cleared. New branches sagging where you thought you'd made room. You cut, haul, cut again, and still it feels endless. The machete is always in motion, and the ground is always waiting to trip you. Hauling the bamboo back to camp is like dragging your own coffin. The stalks are long, unwieldy, and never move where you want them to. You try to walk in a straight line, but they swing wide, catching branches, hitting the man behind you, throwing off your balance. Every soldier in the line curses quietly, adjusting, shifting, stumbling. The jungle turns even simple carrying into chaos. The heat makes it worse. Sweat drips into your eyes, soaks your shirt, stings your raw palms. Your boots squelch with every step, filled with mud and water. The bamboo creaks against your shoulder, threatening to slip. You adjust constantly, shifting the load from one side to the other, but there's no relief. By the time you drop the stalks at camp, your arms are trembling, your chest heaves, and your whole body feels hollowed out. You sit in the mud, staring at the machete, and wonder how you'll pick it up again tomorrow, but tomorrow always comes. The machete dulls again, the bamboo regrows, the shelter falls apart, and you start over. Cutting, hauling, sharpening, carrying, the cycle doesn't end. And the jungle never runs out of ways to remind you who's in charge. The jungle never stops dripping. Even when the rain hasn't fallen in hours, the canopy releases water in steady drops that patter against your helmet, your shoulders, your pack, and the ground around you. The air is so heavy with moisture that even your breath feels wet. That's why a roof isn't just a convenience out here. It's survival. If you don't have something over your head, you're guaranteed to wake up soaked to the bone, shivering in damp fatigues, clutching a rifle that feels like it's rusting in your hands. And then you'll spend the rest of the day carrying that wet misery with you until you're too tired to notice how much your body hurts. So you build a roof. Or at least you try. The first problem is deciding what you're actually making it out of. There are no tarps, no sheets of tin, no bundles of lumber waiting for you like some camp supply station. All you've got are the things the jungle gives you, and the jungle doesn't give easily. The leaves are everywhere, but not every leaf works. Some tear the moment you lay them down. Others sag and let water straight through. You start looking for the biggest ones you can find. Wide tropical leaves with a waxy surface that beads water. They're heavy, awkward, and coated in bugs that crawl over your hands the second you rip them free. But you pile them anyway because you'll need more than you think. The vines come next. They dangle from trees, curling down like ropes, but they're tougher than any rope you've ever used. Some are so thick you could barely wrap your hand around them. You cut them down in long strands, dragging them through the mud, peeling off whatever fungus or insects have claimed them. They're not clean, but they're strong, and that's all that matters. These become your lashings, your knots, the makeshift cord that holds everything together. Without them, you're just piling leaves on the ground and hoping the rain feels merciful tonight. Building begins with bamboo poles lashed into a frame, the skeleton of something that might stand long enough to keep you dry. You drive the ends into the mud, angling them so the water will run off instead of pooling. It sounds simple until you're on your knees, hammering with a rock, sweat pouring into your eyes, the mud swallowing your work before you can brace it. Every stake you drive in feels like it's fighting you. The ground is either too soft to hold or too hard to pierce. There's no middle ground. You pound until your hands ache, then lash the poles together with vines, pulling them tight until your knuckles turn white. The knots never feel secure enough. You pull harder, the vines dig into your palms, cutting shallow grooves into your skin. You don't care. You keep pulling. Then comes the layering. You lay leaves across the frame, overlapping them like shingles, trying to imitate a roof you've never actually built before. It looks sloppy, uneven, and barely capable of standing up to the first downpour. But you don't stop. You keep adding one layer after another until the frame sags under the weight of wet greenery. Every soldier around you is doing the same, cutting, piling, lashing, swearing under their breath. The air is filled with the sound of machetes hitting bamboo, vines being pulled taut, and men muttering curses at knots that won't hold. The roof never feels done. No matter how many layers you put on, it still looks flimsy, still leaks in test drops when you shake it. You know the rain will find its way in. It always does. But out here, less wet is the best you can hope for. You sit back, wipe the sweat and dirt from your forehead, and look at the uneven thatch you've made. It doesn't look like shelter. It looks like a pile of garbage someone tied together with desperation. But in the jungle, that's what passes for construction. Of course, the bugs don't care about your roof. The moment you lay the leaves down, the ants march across them, searching for food. Spiders weave webs between the vines. Termites start chewing at the bamboo almost immediately. You lie under it at night, staring up at the silhouette of your handiwork, and hear the scurrying above you. You wonder how long it will hold before something drops onto your face. And then the rain comes. It always comes. At first, your roof does its job. Water beads on the leaves, runs down the angled slope, and drips harmlessly into the mud at your sides. For a few precious minutes, you feel proud of what you've built. You're dry, your pack is dry, your rifle is dry. But then the storm picks up. The drops grow heavier, pounding against the leaves like fists. The roof shakes, sags, and suddenly water starts seeping through. One drop, then two, then a steady trickle onto your chest. You shift, slide, curl tighter under the driest patch, but the water follows you, finding every gap you left, every mistake you made. Within an hour, your shirt is soaked, your socks are wet again, and your shelter feels like it's mocking you. The vines loosen with the weight of the rain. Knots that seemed solid unravel. Bamboo poles sagging until the roof slants dangerously. You grab them in the dark, tighten them again, your hands slipping on wet fibre, pulling with all your strength while the storm soaks you. The roof never collapses completely, but it never stays strong either. It's always half falling, half working, barely holding on as the jungle does its best to tear it apart. Some soldiers get creative. They weave smaller leaves into mats, pressing them tight, hoping they'll shed water better than loose layers. Others string ponchos over the frame, doubling the cover, though the ponchos collect water until they sag dangerously close to breaking. A few men cut bark from trees, stacking it in slabs across the top, but the bark peels away after a day, curling and cracking. Everyone experiments. Everyone fails. The jungle isn't kind to creativity. It laughs at it, but still you try, because the alternative is lying in the open, staring up into sheets of rain that soak you faster than you can blink. The smell of the roof never goes away. Wet leaves rot quickly, releasing a sour, mouldy stench that fills your nostrils every time you inhale. The vines start to mildew. The bamboo grows slick with slime, and soon your shelter smells worse than your boots. You lie under it anyway, because even a foul-smelling roof is better than no roof at all. The dampness creeps into your lungs, the mould irritates your throat, but at least the rain isn't pounding directly onto your face. Out here, that's the closest you get to comfort. Sometimes the roof collapses completely. A storm too heavy, a knot too loose, a pole that finally gives. It crashes down in the middle of the night, soaking everything at once, burying you under a pile of slimy leaves. You scramble out, cursing, pulling gear out of the mud, trying to rebuild in the pouring rain with nothing but a machete and rage. You lash the frame back together, slap the leaves on top, and hope it lasts until morning. The jungle doesn't care about your exhaustion. It doesn't care that you've been awake for 2 days. It just keeps raining. The roof isn't really about comfort. It's about survival in small degrees. It won't keep you completely dry. It won't keep the bugs away. It won't give you anything close to rest, but it might keep your gear a little safer, your rifle a little cleaner, your body a little less soaked. And sometimes those little margins are all that keep you moving. When you crawl under it at night, huddled against the mud, listening to the storm batter the leaves above, you tell yourself it's enough. Not good, not lasting, just enough. And when the dawn comes, the roof is still there, sagging, dripping, covered in bugs and mildew. You pull yourself out from under it, stretch your aching back, and glance up. It looks pathetic, crooked, barely standing. But it's proof that for one more night you fought the jungle and didn't lose completely. You don't celebrate though. You just grab your machete, glance at the piles of leaves you'll need to cut again tonight, and start the day all over. The roof might keep some of the water off you, but without a frame to hold it, you're just lying under a pile of wet leaves, waiting for the jungle to bury you. The frame is the backbone of every shelter, the thing that turns scattered bamboo and vines into something that at least resembles structure. Building it sounds simple in theory. 4 posts in the ground, a few crossbeams, lash it all together. In reality, it's a battle that starts the moment you drive the first pole into the mud, and ends when the whole thing inevitably starts to sag under its own weight. The ground is the first enemy. It never cooperates. Too soft, and every pole you plant just sinks until it's leaning at an angle that makes the whole frame useless. Too hard, and you can't even get the pole into it without swinging your machete like you're trying to dig to china with a butter knife. Most of the time it's both. Soft muck on top with hard packed clay underneath. So you spend half an hour hammering with rocks, your hands blistering, until you've driven the pole maybe 6 inches deep. That's not enough to hold anything in a storm, but you tell yourself it'll do, because your arms feel like they're about to snap off. Every soldier learns tricks from whoever's been around longer. Angle the poles inward so they push against each other instead of just relying on the ground. Wedge rocks or roots around the base to keep them steady. Drive them close to tree trunks when you can, letting the trees do half the work. These tricks help, but they don't make it easy. You're still hunched in the mud, sweat dripping into your eyes, knuckles raw from lashing vines around bamboo, until your hands feel like they've been chewed up by the jungle itself. The vines are never the same twice. Some are strong, fibrous, pulling tight like rope when you twist them. Others snap the moment you apply pressure, leaving you with a pile of useless strands that fall apart in your hands. You try to pick the right ones, thicker, more flexible, the ones that smell sharp and green when you cut into them. But even those loosen overnight as they dry, and suddenly the frame that seemed solid yesterday is sagging like a drunk leaning against a bar. You wake up to the sound of poles creaking, the whole roof threatening to cave in on you, and you scramble up to retie knots in the dark, pulling until your palms bleed, praying it lasts until morning. Knots become an obsession. You tie them tight, double them, twist them in ways you never thought about back home. Some men know real knots from working on farms or boats, and they show the rest how to lash bamboo like scaffolding. Others just wrap until the vine runs out, hoping the sheer number of turns will keep it from slipping. Either way, the knots are never perfect. The jungle tests them constantly. Rain swells the vines, then dries them until they shrink and loosen. Wind pulls at the frame, the weight of wet leaves presses down, and slowly everything shifts. You lie awake at night, listening to the creak of bamboo under strain, wondering which knot will be the first to give. And bamboo itself isn't as cooperative as you'd like. Fresh cut poles are slick, green, bending under pressure. They split when you drive them into the ground, fibres peeling apart in ragged splinters. Old poles, left from someone else's shelter, are brittle, cracking in half the moment you put weight on them. You never seem to have the perfect pieces, just what you can cut and carry without collapsing from exhaustion. You lash them together anyway, angles crooked, lengths uneven, the whole thing looking like it might fall over if you sneeze too close. Weight becomes the biggest problem. Leaves pile onto the roof, water soaks them until they're heavy, and suddenly your carefully built frame starts to sag. The poles bow inward, vines creak, and knots slide. You try to reinforce it with more crossbeams, more lashings, more poles driven into the mud, but each addition makes the structure heavier, pulling it down even faster. It's a cycle that never ends. Build, sag, rebuild, sag again. The jungle always wins. The best you can hope for is something that holds long enough to get a few hours of miserable sleep before you tear it down and move the next day. Sometimes you think you've built something strong. You stand back, wipe the sweat from your forehead, look at the crooked square of bamboo lashed together, and feel a tiny bit of pride. Then the rain comes. It doesn't just fall. It hammers, slamming into the roof until the whole frame groans. Water runs down the bamboo, into the vines, softening everything until the knots slip loose. You press your hand against a post and feel it wobble. By midnight, the roof is sagging inches lower, dripping onto your face, and you're up again, fumbling in the dark with wet vines, trying to tighten knots you can't even see. Your hands slip, your teeth grit, and you wonder why you even bothered. And yet, you keep building. Not because it works, but because not building is worse. Sleeping without a frame means lying directly in the mud, exposed, your rifle caked in dirt by morning, your body soaked through, your gear ruined. The frame isn't comfort, it's damage control. It's the difference between misery and disaster, between a night of damp sleep and a night of drowning in the storm. The frame is also camouflage. A sloppy pile of leaves is obvious, but a proper structure blends into the jungle. You angle the roof to match the canopy above, lash extra vines across the top, cover it with branches until it disappears into the green. From a distance, it just looks like another tangle of plants. At least, that's what you hope. You never really know if you're hidden, but you tell yourself you are, because the alternative, being spotted while you're sleeping, isn't worth thinking about. The frame takes more energy than you ever want to give. You spend hours cutting bamboo, hours lashing vines, hours adjusting angles until the thing stands upright. By the time it's done, your arms are trembling, your back is screaming, and you can barely keep your eyes open. You collapse under it, half proud, half defeated, and drift off to the sound of rain hitting leaves. A few hours later, you wake up with the roof sagging into your chest, the frame creaking dangerously, and you know you'll be rebuilding again tomorrow. That's the truth of it. The frame isn't a masterpiece. It's not permanent. It's not strong. It's a temporary skeleton that holds just long enough to convince you you're safe, even though you know you're not. Every soldier learns that lesson the hard way. Build fast, build strong enough, and accept that collapse is just part of the deal. Out here, nothing stands forever. The jungle never gives you solid ground. It gives you mud. Not just a little mud, not the kind you step around on a rainy sidewalk back home. This is the kind that swallows boots, clings to your uniform, and spreads across everything you own until you start to wonder if you've become part of it. The ground is alive, shifting with every step, sucking at your feet like it wants to keep you forever. The first time you feel it pull at your boot, you think it's just a patch of soft soil. Then it drags so hard you nearly topple over, and you realise this isn't soil. This is quicksand without the drama, just slow, relentless suction that doesn't stop until you yank yourself free. The rain makes it worse, and the rain is always there. Not the gentle kind that taps against windows in the suburbs. Not the clean showers you jog through on the way to your car. This rain is a wall, pounding with such force it bounces off leaves and hits you sideways. It doesn't fall and then stop. It just keeps coming hour after hour until you forget what it feels like to be dry. You lie in your shelter listening to it hammering against your makeshift roof, leaking through the gaps, turning your bedding into a swamp. Then morning comes, and the whole world is softer, wetter, heavier than it was the day before. Mud crawls into every part of your life. It cakes your boots until each foot feels like it's weighed down by bricks. You scrape it off with sticks, with knives, with your bare hands, but it's back within minutes. You march through a trail, and your legs are caked up to the knees, socks squelching inside boots that never dry. You sit down for a meal, and the mud sticks to your mess kit, smearing across the already questionable rations until everything tastes faintly of grit. You try to clean your rifle, but mud is already jammed into the barrel, the stock, the trigger guard. You dig it out with rags and sticks, praying it still fires when you need it, knowing all the while that mud is always one step ahead. Rain doesn't just soak you, it turns the world into rot. Your uniform never dries, no matter how long you hang it near a fire. The air is too wet, the fabric too thick, and the rain always comes back before the job is finished. You pull on the same damp shirt every morning, the same damp socks, the same damp trousers, and within minutes they're glued to your skin again. The smell is permanent, sour, mildewed, human sweat mixed with jungle decay. You scratch constantly, your skin rubbed raw by fabric that never gets a chance to breathe. Fungal infections creep in, rashes spreading across your body, and you stop even trying to resist. Out here, being wet is your natural state. The ground beneath you shifts with every storm. Trails that were passable yesterday are rivers today, sucking at boots, pulling men down until they're stumbling on all fours to stay upright. Trenches fill with water, dugouts collapse, foxholes turn into swimming pools. You bail them out with helmets, scooping water until your arms ache, only to watch the hole fill up again minutes later. You sleep sitting up, your back against the side of the pit, your legs half submerged, telling yourself at least you're not lying flat in the water. Men joke about needing lifeguards for their foxholes, but no one laughs too hard because it doesn't feel like a joke. When the mud isn't pulling at you, it's sliding under you. Hillsides collapse in the rain, sending torrents of water and muck down into the low ground. Camps get washed out overnight, gear swept away, shelters flattened. You scramble to grab whatever you can before it disappears into the flow, Boots, rifles, packs, all half buried in brown sludge. You dig them out with your hands, wipe them down, and keep going. Because what else can you do? Out here, the mud doesn't just slow you down. It threatens to erase everything you've built. Leeches thrive in the wet. They wriggle through the mud, cling to your boots, latch onto your legs the moment they find bare skin. You stop noticing until you feel the itch, until you peel off your sock at night and see the blood running down your ankle. The rain makes it worse. It washes them out of the ground, spreads them across trails, sends them dropping from branches overhead. You flick one off, and two more take its place. The rain feeds the mud, and the mud feeds the leeches. It's a cycle you can't break. In the middle of a march, the rain turns everything into chaos. Boots slip on slick roots, men fall face first into muck, rifles caked in mud before anyone can react. Packs grow twice as heavy as the canvas soaks through, straps biting into shoulders already rubbed raw. You trudge forward, one step after another, each boot sucking free with a sound like tearing Velcro. Every step feels like it takes twice the effort, and you start to wonder how far you can go before your body gives out. No one says it out loud, but everyone thinks the same thing. The jungle doesn't need bullets to kill you. It just needs rain and mud. The smell is constant. Wet earth, rot, mildew, sweat. Your nostrils clog with it. Your lungs fill with it. And eventually you can taste it on your tongue. Even your food tastes like mud. The smell seeping into everything. Crackers crumble with grit. Canned meat carries the faint tang of dirt. Water tablets leave you with a chemical mud cocktail in every sip. You swallow anyway because hunger doesn't care about taste. But you can't ignore the feeling that you're slowly becoming part of the ground you're walking on. Rain doesn't stop for the night. It hammers on your shelter, leaks through the roof, pools under your bedding. You wake up in the dark, water seeping into your clothes, your rifle slick with moisture. You shift, curl tighter, try to find a dry patch, but there isn't one. You listen to the steady drumming, the splashing of water dripping inside, the creak of bamboo under the weight. You close your eyes, hoping for sleep, but the rain is too loud, the mud too cold, the smell too sour. You drift in and out, never fully resting, always waking to adjust, to wipe, to curse. Morning doesn't bring relief. The rain might lighten, but the mud is worse. Every step out of the shelter sinks ankle deep. You pull your boots free with effort, only to have them swallowed again in the next step. You move slower, wasting energy you don't have. The mud grips at you, laughs at you, reminds you that you're not going anywhere without its permission. The rain feeds it, the jungle drinks it, and you're just another body fighting through it. Some men grow used to it. They stop trying to fight it, stop trying to stay dry, stop caring when the mud seeps into their food, their clothes, their skin. They wade through it without complaint, numb to the discomfort. Others never adapt. They curse every step, every drop, every night spent lying in cold water. You can see it in their eyes, the slow breaking, the realization that the rain and the mud don't just wear on your body, they wear on your mind. You start to forget what it feels like to be clean, to be dry, to be warm without being soaked in sweat or rainwater. You forget what normal ground feels like under your feet. The jungle wins with patience. It doesn't need to crush you all at once. It just needs to keep raining, keep softening the ground, keep filling your boots with water and your lungs with dampness. Every day, a little more of you sinks into the mud, You scrape it off, you push forward, you pretend you're beating it back. But deep down, you know the truth. The mud is endless, and the rain never stops. Nothing in the jungle belongs to you. The shelter you just hacked together with bamboo and vines doesn't stand out as yours. The clothes stuck to your skin aren't your identity. Even your smell, sweat, mildew, gun oil, mixes with the rot and mud until you can't tell where you end and the jungle begins. And that's the point. Out here, if you want to stay alive, you need to disappear. You need to become part of the background. Because the enemy isn't fighting in neat lines across open fields. They're watching, waiting, listening for the one thing that looks out of place. Camouflage isn't optional. It's the line between waking up tomorrow and never waking up again. The first lesson comes from the trees themselves. Every shade of green you've ever seen back home is here, plus 100 you never imagined. Dark, waxy leaves that reflect sunlight like glass. Pale moss clinging to bark. Vines so bright they look painted on. The colours shift with the time of day, with the angle of the sun, with the mist hanging in the air. Your uniform, stamped out in some factory thousands of miles away, is supposed to match it. In reality, it doesn't. The jungle laughs at it. The green is wrong, the pattern too regular. The first time you crouch in a thicket, you realise you look like a man wearing army clothes, sitting in the middle of a painting. So you fix it. Mud becomes paint. You smear it across your fatigues, across your face, across the pale skin of your hands. Thick streaks, clumps, layers until you're heavy with it. It cakes under your fingernails, clogs your pores, stinks like rot. But it dulls the shine. It breaks up the edges. You're no longer a man. You're a lump of earth, a shadow under the leaves, another piece of swamp too miserable to notice. The mud never stops being wet. It slides down your cheek, drips into your mouth, leaves you spitting dirt. But you keep smearing it back on, because a dirty face is better than a visible face. Then there are the vines. You cut strips and lash them to your helmet, weaving leaves into the netting until it sprouts like a bush. Some men stick branches into their packs, letting the greenery break up their outline. Others tie ferns around their rifles, hiding the straight lines that catch an enemy eye. It's uncomfortable, heavy. Bugs crawl from the leaves straight into your hair. But it works. From a distance, you're not a man crouching in the brush. You're just more brush. But camouflage isn't just about what you wear. It's about how you move. The jungle is alive with motion. Branches swaying, insects buzzing, birds darting. Human movement doesn't fit. Too quick. Too stiff, too deliberate. You learn to move like the jungle does. Slow, uneven, stopping often, crouching low. You place your foot carefully, heel down, then roll forward, testing the ground before putting your weight on it. A snap of a twig is a gunshot out here. One careless step, and the whole world knows where you are. You breathe slower, deeper, trying not to pant. Trying not to let the steam of your breath give you away in the morning mist. Every move is calculated, every shift rehearsed. Because a mistake doesn't mean embarrassment, it means death. Noise is the enemy's best ally. You hear it in training, but in the jungle, you live it. Your gear rattles if you let it. Metal against metal, canteen against belt, rifle sling creaking. Every sound carries. You stuff cloth between buckles, tie cords around loose straps, wrap tape around anything that clicks. You check your pack a dozen times. patting down every pouch because you know the silence out here is fragile. A single clink and the enemy has your number. You've heard stories of whole patrols ambushed because one man let his gear jingle. You don't want to be that man. Smell betrays you just as fast. Cigarettes, soap, even the rations you heat over a fire. All of it drifts. The jungle holds on to scent like a sponge. You think no one can smell it over the rotten mildew, but you're wrong. The Viet Cong live out here. They know every smell that belongs and every smell that doesn't. Cigarette smoke, canned beef, American sweat. They can catch it from hundreds of feet away. You stop lighting fires, stop washing with anything that isn't swamp water. Stop carrying anything that smells foreign. You start to stink like the jungle, because smelling like yourself is too dangerous. Your shelter has to vanish too. A pile of bamboo tied with vines might look obvious if you leave it plain, so you cover it. More leaves, more mud, branches piled across the roof until it blends. The roof that already sags under the rain now sags under camouflage. But that doesn't matter. A weak roof is better than a visible one. You crouch beneath it, listening to the rain pound, and tell yourself no one can see you. Whether it's true or not doesn't matter. Belief is survival. The enemy does it better. That's what everyone says. The Viet Cong don't just hide in the jungle. They become the jungle. They melt into it, vanish without a trace. They dig tunnels, cover them with branches, and walk right past you while you're still figuring out which way the vines should face. You see one for a second, a shadow between trees, and then he's gone, swallowed by green. You realise your camouflage is crude, clumsy. You feel exposed even when you've caked yourself in mud, tied branches to your helmet, and crouched so low your knees ache. You never stop feeling like you're visible, like someone is already watching you. And someone usually is. You crouch, hidden, thinking you've done it right, and then you hear it. The crack of a twig, the shuffle of a footstep that isn't yours. The jungle shifts, the silence tightens, and you know they're out there. You hold your breath, press yourself lower, and wait. Your heart hammers, your muscles twitch, but you don't move. Not yet. You pray the camouflage holds, that the mud on your face and the leaves on your helmet are enough. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. You never know until it's too late. Camouflage eats at your body. The mud clogs your pores, leaving your skin covered in rashes. The leaves tied to your gear rot within days, stinking, dripping brown liquid down your back. The vines you lash to your helmet cut into your forehead, leaving grooves that never fully fade. You want to rip it all off, scrub yourself clean, stand upright, but you can't. Not here. Not now. Standing out means being shot at. Comfort isn't worth it. Even your face changes. Back home, faces are meant to be seen. Out here, they're just another liability. Pale skin reflects light, shines in the gloom. You smear mud, charcoal, grease across it until you don't even recognise yourself. In the mirror of a puddle, you're not a man anymore. You're a shadow with eyes, a smear of colour against the green. You stare at your reflection and wonder how long it will take before you forget what you used to look like. Maybe that's the point. You start to dream about blending in. Even in sleep, you're trying not to be noticed. You curl smaller, quieter, hands tucked close, breath shallow. And you wake up stiff, cramped, but alive. That's all camouflage really is here. A chance to wake up alive. You never believe it's perfect, never believe you're invisible, but you cling to the hope that it's enough, that the jungle will forgive your rough attempt at disappearing just long enough to let you make it to another dawn. And when dawn does come, the camouflage feels heavy. Mud dried into flakes across your face, vines sagging from your helmet, branches slipping off your roof. You fix it all again, reapply mud, cut fresh leaves, retie knots. Every day is the same routine. Disappear, reappear, disappear again. You start to realise you're spending more energy hiding than fighting. But that's the war here. Camouflage or death. Hiding in plain sight until you forget there was ever another way to live. The jungle doesn't just try to kill you with bullets, snakes, and rain. It sends in its smallest soldiers first. Mosquitoes. Millions of them. The constant high-pitched whine in your ears becomes the background music of Vietnam. A sound you never get away from. They swarm you in clouds, thick enough to see, thick enough to choke on. Every patch of exposed skin becomes a landing strip. They bite your hands, your neck, your ears, the thin skin around your eyes. They bite through fabric, through socks, through the thin cotton of your fatigues. And there's no mercy. No moment where they get tired and leave you alone. They attack in daylight, in darkness, in the middle of rainstorms. And when the air is so thick with humidity, you think nothing could fly. That's why the mosquito net becomes your full sense of security. They hand it to you, like it's some kind of shield, a flimsy square of mesh that's supposed to separate you from the enemy. In theory, it's simple. You drape it over your sleeping space, tuck it under your mat or your body, and let it form a barrier between you and the swarms outside. In reality, it's a joke. The net tears easily, snags on bamboo splinters, rips on your gear, burns if a stray ember from a fire touches it. One tiny hole and the whole thing might as well be invisible. The mosquitoes find it instantly, crawling through, buzzing inside, leaving you trapped in a prison with your tormentors. Even when the net isn't ripped, it never works the way it's supposed to. The mesh is too fine for air to flow through, so the moment you pull it over yourself, you're sealed in a humid bubble. Your own breath condenses inside, the air turning hotter, damper, suffocating. You wake up drenched in sweat, face pressed against the sticky fabric, chest heaving like you've been locked in a closet. The net isn't protection, it's punishment. The mosquitoes know how to exploit it. They land by the hundreds on the outside, crawling across the mesh, probing with their stingers, jabbing through the holes until they hit skin. You wake to the sensation of dozens of tiny needles pressing against your body, the itch spreading before you've even fully opened your eyes. You slap at your arms, your legs, your face, but you're trapped inside. Every frantic movement just tangles you more in the net, twisting it around your body, pulling it tighter against your skin, until you're practically gift-wrapped for the swarm. Some men try to fix it. They douse the net in repellent, soaking it until the fabric reeks of chemicals that sting your nose and burn your eyes. The mosquitoes don't care. They fly through anyway, some deterred, most not. Others try smoking them out, lighting small fires near the shelter and letting the smoke drift inside. That works for a few minutes, until your lungs are burning and your eyes water so bad you can't even see the insects that are still buzzing around your head. Eventually you give up and just lie there, letting them bite, too exhausted to keep fighting. The worst part isn't the itching, it's what they carry. Malaria, dengue fever, Japanese encephalitis, invisible diseases packed inside wings no bigger than a fingernail. You don't know, when the bite will be the one that changes everything. You might brush it off as just another itch, only to wake 3 days later, shivering with fever, sweating so hard you can barely drink water, muscles aching until you can't even hold your rifle. The net is supposed to keep that from happening, but it doesn't. Every soldier knows at least one man who slept under his net religiously and still came down with malaria so bad he had to be carried out. The net is theatre, not protection. And then there are the ants. You thought you were fighting mosquitoes, but the ants figure out the net too. They climb up from the ground, march across the mesh in endless lines, and drop through holes so small you can't even see them. Fire ants, soldier ants, biting ants that latch on and don't let go. You wake in the middle of the night to the sensation of crawling, dozens of tiny legs moving across your body, and by the time you tear the net off, you're already covered in bites. The net doesn't just fail to keep insects out. Sometimes it seems like it traps them in, locking you in a box with every creature you are trying to avoid. The irony is that setting the net up properly takes more time and effort than most men have at the end of a day. You have to find the right poles, lash them together, stretch the fabric without ripping it, and then tuck the edges under something solid. You do all that in the dark, by flashlight or no light at all, hands shaking with exhaustion, while mosquitoes already feed on your neck. By the time the net is up, you're so drained you collapse under it without caring whether it's secure. And that's when you discover the corner wasn't tucked properly, or a vine tore a hole while you weren't looking, or the whole thing sagged until it's draped across your face. The smell of the net becomes another punishment. The fabric is always damp, never dry, stinking of mildew and sweat. You breathe it in with every gasp, your nose pressed against wet mesh that tastes like mould. You cough, you gag, you turn your head, but the smell doesn't go away. You can't wash it. Even if you could, the rain would soak it again before it dried. So you lie in the stink, telling yourself it's worth it if it keeps the mosquitoes out, even though you know it won't. Some men give up entirely. They stop using the net, preferring to sleep exposed. At least then they can breathe. At least then they don't wake up tangled, sweating, choking. They smear repellent across their skin, light a fire if they dare, and hope the smoke and chemicals keep the worst of it away. Others stick with the net out of habit, out of superstition, out of the faint chance it might work. It's a matter of personal misery. Suffocate in the net or be eaten alive without it. There's no right answer. And through it all, the buzzing never stops. You close your eyes, desperate for sleep, and it's there. The high-pitched whine in your ears, sometimes so close you feel the wings brush against your skin. You slap wildly, hit nothing, slap again, and the sound just shifts to the other side of your head. You bury your face in your arm, but they find the exposed skin of your neck. You pull the blanket over your head, but the heat suffocates you. You return to the net, even knowing it's useless, because at least it gives you the illusion of trying. Sleep becomes shallow, restless. You drift in and out, scratching, slapping, muttering curses into the dark. Every bite burns, every itch spreads, until your body feels like it's on fire from 1,000 tiny wounds. By morning, your face is swollen, your arms covered in red welts, your ankles raw from scratching through the night. You look at the net, sagging, torn, covered in the tiny black corpses of the few mosquitoes you managed to crush, and you wonder why you bothered. But you keep setting it up anyway. Because out here, even the illusion of safety is better than nothing. The net doesn't keep the mosquitoes out. It never did. It just gives you something to cling to. A ritual. A flimsy barrier between you and a sky full of wings waiting to drain you dry. You don't get privacy in the jungle. You don't even get space. Every inch around you is already occupied, crawling, slithering, buzzing, nesting. The moment you clear a patch of ground and throw together a frame of bamboo, you've moved into someone else's house. And the jungle's other residents don't pack up and leave just because you showed up with a rifle and orders. They stay. They climb over you, under you, around you. They crawl into your boots, your pack, your shelter, your hair. Sharing space with jungle creatures isn't a choice. It's the rule. The first roommates are the ants. They are everywhere. Tiny black ones that swarm over your rations the second you crack them open. Fire ants that drop from branches like bombs, sinking their jaws into your skin and holding on while you flail. Big red ones that sting with a burn that doesn't fade for hours. You brush them off, stomp them, curse them, but they never stop coming. They march in endless lines, weaving through the mud, up your pack, into your shelter. At night, you lie awake and feel them crawling across your arm, tickling your neck, swarming your legs. You slap at them, roll over, crush a few dozen under your weight. It doesn't matter. They're back the next night, the next hour, the next minute. The jungle belongs to the ants, and you're just another surface for them to explore. Then come the spiders. They don't hide in corners or politely spin webs out of reach. They squat in the middle of trails, thick strands of silk strung between trees, waiting at face level for the first poor bastard to walk into it. You feel the sticky web slap across your face, and your body reacts before your brain does. You claw at your skin, swatting wildly, convinced the spider is already crawling across your head. Sometimes you're wrong. Sometimes the spider drops straight onto your neck, big and hairy and moving faster than your hands. The bites range from annoying to dangerous. Most just itch, swelling into welts like mosquito bites. Others throb and blister, the venom eating at your skin. You don't know which is which until it happens. Snakes refuse to stay in the grass where you think they belong. They hang from branches overhead, coils dangling, heads flicking out their tongues as you walk beneath them. They slip into your shelter, curling under your bedding where the warmth draws them. You peel back a poncho at night and see scales glinting in the light, your stomach dropping before your body even reacts. Some slither away, uninterested. Others rear back, ready to strike. You don't have time to figure out which. You grab your machete, your entrenching tool, anything heavy, and swing. Sometimes you hit, sometimes you don't. Either way, you don't sleep easy for days afterwards, knowing there's no barrier between you and the jungle's most silent killers. The rats are bolder. They don't just sneak around the edges of camp. They march right through it. Big, greasy grey bodies darting between boots, climbing over packs, gnawing at rations. You hear them at night, the squeaking, the scrabbling, the sound of claws scratching against metal and wood. You roll over and feel the weight of one scurrying across your legs, tail dragging across your skin. You swat at it, but the rats don't scare easy. They know you're too tired to chase them. They steal food. They chew through ponchos. They piss on everything you own. You wake up to the smell of rat droppings mixed with mildew, and you stop pretending you can keep them out. Leeches, of course, never let you forget they're here. You already fought them in the mud, but in camp, they're still part of the routine. They drop from branches, wriggling onto your shoulders, inching down your chest until they find bare skin. You peel one off and smear its bloated body across your sleeve, only to feel another squirming against your ankle. You stop caring after a while. You let them feed until you have time to rip them off. The blood runs anyway, dripping into your boots, mixing with the sweat and rain until you're never sure if you're bleeding, sweating, or both. Even the birds are enemies. Not the songbirds you grew up with. Not the kind that chirp at dawn and make you smile. These birds scream. Harsh, grating cries that cut through the jungle noise, startling you every time. They swoop low, wings beating heavy, eyes glinting with a feral sharpness. Some steal food right out of your hand. Others just circle overhead, waiting, reminding you that nothing you eat or drink or carry is ever just yours. The frogs and toads join the chorus at night. Their croaks echo so loudly you'd swear you set up camp in the middle of a swamp. They hop through your shelter, slick bodies brushing against your arm, your leg, your gear. You tell yourself they're harmless, and mostly they are. But harmless doesn't mean pleasant when you wake up with one sitting on your chest, blinking at you with unblinking eyes, croaking loud enough to rattle your teeth. Then there are the centipedes. Long, armoured, bristling with legs. They crawl into boots, into helmets, into packs, waiting for the moment you stick your hand inside. Their bite burns like fire, a white-hot pain that shoots up your arm or leg, leaving you gasping and sweating. The venom doesn't kill you, but it makes you wish it would. The swelling, the throbbing, the fever that follows. It's another layer of misery in a place already drowning you in it. Scorpions hide under rocks, in logs, in the folds of your shelter. You pick something up without looking, and there they are, tail arched, stinger ready. Their sting isn't always lethal, but it's enough to put you flat on your back, muscles cramping, head spinning, stomach churning. You learn to check everything before touching it. Boots, packs, bedding, helmets. Shake it all, turn it upside down, smack it against the ground. Forget once and you pay for it. Bats swoop at night, silent at first, then screeching as they dart low, wings brushing against your head. You swat at them, duck, curse, but they keep circling. Sometimes they roost in the trees above your shelter, dropping guano that spatters your roof, stinking worse than anything else you've smelled all day. You lie under it, listening to the fluttering wings and squeaks, knowing the disease they carry could be worse than their noise. But what can you do? You're outnumbered. Always outnumbered. And through it all, the mosquitoes never stop. Even with the nets, the repellent, the smoke, they always find a way in. You scratch until your skin bleeds, welts rising across your arms, your neck, your face. The constant itch drives you half mad, but you keep lying still, because slapping at them just makes noise, and noise makes you visible. You let them feed. You give in. The truth is, the jungle creatures aren't intruding on you. You're intruding on them. They've been here long before the war, long before men decided to fight over this patch of earth. They know the trails, the trees, the cycles of rain and flood. They know where to hide, where to feed, where to nest. You're the stranger, stumbling through their world, building weak shelters in their living rooms, laying down to sleep in their kitchens, and they remind you of it every night. With bites, stings, scratches, squeaks, croaks, flutters and buzzing. The jungle doesn't need to send soldiers after you. It has its own army already. Out here, food is never just food. It's fuel, it's comfort, it's distraction. But most of all, it's risk. Every time you heat something up, every time you strike a match or flick a lighter, you're gambling with your life. Because smoke doesn't just drift away harmlessly in the jungle. It rises, it hangs, it spreads. And anyone with eyes can follow it. You can spend all night crawling through mud, all day hacking through vines, all evening building a shelter out of bamboo and leaves, but the moment smoke curls into the sky, it gives you away. That faint grey thread weaving upward might as well be a flare. The army hands you rations, canned and packaged, designed to last forever, but tasting like punishment. Cold, they're edible in the strictest sense. Meat mashed into unidentifiable shapes. Crackers that crumble into chalk in your mouth. Fruit bars that taste like sawdust mixed with sugar. You chew slowly, swallow hard, and tell yourself it's fuel, nothing more. But every once in a while, when the rain lets up and the mosquitoes thin out for half a second, you start thinking about heat, about warm food, something that smells like it's meant to be eaten, not endured. That's when the fire becomes a temptation. Building a fire in the jungle isn't easy, even when you don't care about the smoke. The ground is always wet, the air thick with moisture. Wood rots before it burns. You gather sticks and branches, snapping them until your hands ache, and when you try to light them, the flames sputter, coughing smoke into your face before dying out. You fan it, blow on it, shield it with your body, and finally coax a flicker into a flame. You huddle over it like it's a secret, shielding it from the rain, praying it doesn't go out before you've boiled a single cup of water. But even when you get it going, the smoke betrays you. It curls upward, drifting through the canopy, pale against the green. You try to smother it with wet leaves, cover it with a poncho, dig a hole, and build the fire below ground level. You learn tricks from men who've been here longer. Fires inside pits, fires with bamboo chimneys, fires covered with fresh leaves that hiss and steam but cut down the smoke. Sometimes it works. More often it doesn't. Smoke still seeps out, curling in thin lines that carry farther than you ever think they will. Every man has a story about smoke giving someone away. A patrol that stopped for hot coffee in the morning and got hit before they could drink it. A camp that thought it was safe enough to boil rice, only for artillery to land within minutes. The jungle doesn't forgive mistakes, and smoke is the loudest mistake you can make without firing a gun. So you get paranoid, you light a tiny flame, crouch over it, shield it with your helmet, and still you look up every few seconds, half expecting shapes to appear out of the trees, rifles aimed, drawn by the faintest whiff. So you eat cold. Cold cans, cold crackers, cold coffee mixed in lukewarm water. Your stomach churns, your throat resists, but you swallow anyway. Because hunger is worse. Because being found is worse. Warmth becomes a memory. You think about home, about kitchens that smell like bacon and eggs, about steam rising from bowls of soup, about the smell of bread in an oven. Then you look down at the can in your hand, greasy meat swimming in fat, eaten with a dull spoon that still has mud on the handle. You chew slowly, and the jungle laughs at you. Some men risk it anyway. They light fires at night, deep under the canopy, digging pits and feeding the flames with dry bamboo shaved into slivers. The fire burns low, small, just enough to heat a can or boil a cup. They sit close, shielding it with their bodies, barely talking above a whisper. The glow flickers on their faces, tired and hollow. The smell of heating food drifts, faint but unmistakable. It smells like hope, like home, like something human in a place that tries to strip the humanity away. For a few minutes, it feels worth it. And then they stomp it out, scatter the ashes, cover the pit with dirt, and pray no one saw. The rain makes fire building both easier and harder. Easier, because the steam from wet leaves can mask some of the smoke. Harder, because everything you gather is soaked through. You strike matches over and over, the heads crumbling in your fingers, the flame dying before it catches. Lighters fail, soaked with water, fuel running low. You hunch over the pit, fingers shaking, teeth clenched, coaxing tiny sparks into flame, while mosquitoes bite your ears and rain drips down your back. Finally, when the fire catches, you shield it with your body, feeding it carefully, knowing one wrong move and you'll be back in the dark with nothing but cold rations again. The jungle itself conspires against fire. The leaves you think are dry hiss with moisture when you throw them on. The branches you gathered collapse into mush instead of coals. The bamboo explodes in sharp pops when it burns, splitting violently, sparks flying. You flinch every time, worried the noise will carry farther than the smoke. You end up crouching lower, covering the fire with your poncho, sweating in the heat, your face red and raw. And still the smoke slips out in thin grey fingers. You curse, smother it with dirt, and go back to eating out of a cold can, wondering why you even tried. Even when the fire works, the food doesn't always taste better. Canned meat heated up turns greasy, the fat congealing in your mouth, leaving you choking it down. Instant coffee tastes like burned dirt, whether it's hot or cold. The only thing heat really does is remind you what you're missing. You sip it anyway, savouring the warmth even as you know you'll pay for it in paranoia later. Every cough of smoke is a signal. Every flicker of flame a target. You finish quickly, bury the ashes, and tell yourself it didn't happen. The fear of smoke makes men inventive. Some dig elaborate pits, lining them with rocks, building fires so deep the smoke filters before it reaches the air. Others cut bamboo into long tubes, creating makeshift chimneys that carry the smoke sideways away from camp. A few try using animal dung as fuel, the smell so foul it masks the smoke. Nothing works perfectly. The jungle always finds a way to carry the scent, to make the fire visible. You realise after a while that it's not about eliminating smoke. It's about gambling with how far it travels, about hoping the wind carries it the other direction, about trusting luck more than skill. You start to notice the smell of fire in other places, distant, faint, drifting through the trees. You freeze, every hair on your body standing on end. Because if you can smell it, someone else is close. Friend, enemy, it doesn't matter. Someone is cooking, someone is careless, someone is there. You crouch lower, rifle ready, listening to the silence that follows. Sometimes it's nothing. Sometimes it's everything. Either way, you never stop noticing. Fire is both temptation and betrayal, a beacon you can't ignore. The mosquitoes don't care about your fire. If anything, the heat draws them closer. You hunch over the pit, face in the smoke, trying to escape them, but they bite anyway. The smoke stings your eyes, burns your lungs, makes you cough, and the mosquitoes still find you. The fire gives you nothing but a faint illusion of comfort and a bigger target on your back. You keep lighting it anyway, because sometimes illusion is all you have left. In the end, cooking without smoke is just another lie the jungle forces you to tell yourself. You never really hide it. You just hope it's thin enough, faint enough, brief enough that no one sees. You eat quickly, you stamp it out, you bury the evidence, and you move on. And then the next night, hungry and tired, you find yourself crouching over another hole in the mud, coaxing another flame, watching another thread of smoke curl into the air. You know it's dangerous, you know it's stupid, but the smell of warm food in the middle of the jungle feels like a victory, however small, and victories are too rare to pass up. Sleep is supposed to be recovery. Back home, you close your eyes on a bed that's yours, sheets pulled tight, pillow soft, and you wake with enough energy to do it all again. Out here, sleep is just another battle, one more thing the jungle takes from you. You don't rest, you collapse. And where you collapse is never a choice between comfort and discomfort. It's a choice between pain and more pain. The ground is the first option, and it's also the worst. Hard roots pressing into your spine, rocks grinding into your ribs, mud sucking heat out of your body until you're shivering even in the tropical heat. You try to clear space, push aside debris, flatten the earth with your boots. But the moment you lie down, the ground reminds you it's not yours. The damp seeps up through your clothes, into your skin, settling in your bones. You shift to find a better angle, but there isn't one. Every position hurts. Every inch of earth has its own way of making you miserable. Some men try to get off the ground by sleeping on logs. It sounds clever in theory. Logs keep you out of the mud, out of the leeches, away from the crawling insects. But the reality is worse. The logs are slick with moss, covered in ants, uneven enough to roll you off in the middle of the night. You balance your body across it, arms folded, legs dangling, and every muscle in your back screams at you to stop. You slide an inch at a time, gripping with your thighs, adjusting constantly, jerking awake every few minutes when you feel yourself slipping. Sleep becomes a cycle of micro naps, interrupted by panic. By morning, you're more exhausted than when you started, your clothes streaked green with moss, your body aching from clinging to a piece of wood all night. The hammock promises more. It hangs between two trees, swaying gently, lifting you above the ground. The first time you climb into one, you almost believe in it. The canvas cradles you, the sway rocks you, like you're back in some kind of childhood memory. But the jungle doesn't allow comfort for long. Rain collects in the sagging fabric until you're lying in a puddle suspended in the air. Mosquitoes find you from below, biting through the thin material, leaving your back covered in welts. The ropes fray, knots loosen, and sometimes the whole thing gives out in the middle of the night, dropping you straight into the mud. The hammock doesn't save you from the jungle, it just delays the inevitable. Logs and hammocks fail, so you improvise. You stack bamboo into crude platforms, lashing the poles together with vines, building a surface that might lift you a few feet off the ground. It takes hours of labour, your hands raw from pulling vines, your arms trembling from swinging the machete. And when it's done, it's not a bed, it's a rack. The poles dig into your back, spaced too far apart to support you, too close to leave gaps. You try to lie flat, but the uneven surface presses into your spine, your hips, your shoulders. You wake with new bruises every morning, but at least you're not lying in the mud. That's the best you can say. Some men don't even bother with logs, hammocks or platforms. They just curl up on the ground, helmet under their head, rifle across their chest. Exhaustion beats discomfort, at least for a few hours. But the jungle doesn't forgive that choice either. Ants swarm your body, leeches crawl across your arms, centipedes wriggle into your clothes. You wake scratching, slapping, cursing, and by the time you realise what's on you, it's already bitten. You sit up, swatting bugs off your skin, mud clinging to your uniform, and tell yourself you'll never sleep like that again. Then the next night comes, and you do it anyway, because you're too tired to care. Noise never lets you forget where you are. The jungle is alive 24 hours a day, and nighttime is louder than daytime. Frogs croak in chorus, insects buzz in a shrill wall of sound, birds scream like someone's being murdered just beyond the trees. You lie there, eyes open, listening to the chaos, waiting for a sound that doesn't belong. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves, every distant thud has you gripping your rifle, heart pounding, convinced someone is moving toward you. Sleep comes in fragments, stolen moments where your body shuts down from exhaustion, only to be ripped awake again by noise. You never rest fully. You hover in the space between awareness and collapse. Rain adds another layer. It pounds on your shelter, leaks through the roof, drips directly onto your forehead like the jungle's personal torture device. The drops are cold, sharp, unrelenting. You shift to avoid them, curling tighter, moving your head an inch, but they follow. They always find you. Soon your whole body is wet, your bedding soaked, your gear damp. You shiver, teeth chattering despite the tropical heat. The hammock fills with water. The platform becomes slick. The ground turns to muck. You wake with your legs half submerged, your boots floating beside you, your pack ruined. Sleep is no longer even the right word. It's just unconsciousness between bouts of misery. And then there are the creatures. Rats scurry across your legs, gnaw at the corners of your pack, squeaking loud enough to jolt you awake. Snakes curl under your platform, their scales rasping against the bamboo as they move. Spiders dangle above your head, dropping onto your chest in the dark. You swat, roll, curse, grab for your knife, heart racing, only to realise you've been fighting something smaller than your thumb. The jungle doesn't respect your sleep. It invades it, interrupts it, corrupts it until you dread the moment you close your eyes. Exhaustion is worse than hunger, worse than thirst. It eats at your mind until you can't think straight. You stumble through the day half asleep, eyelids heavy, head nodding. You march with your rifle clutched tight, but your brain drifts. You blink and realise you've walked 10 feet without remembering it. You dig trenches, hack bamboo, smear mud on your face, but the whole time you're dreaming of a bed you'll never see again. Not a fancy one, not even a clean one. Just a dry surface, a quiet room, a pillow that doesn't crawl with insects. You'd give anything for it, but the jungle won't give it back. Sleep deprivation makes you careless. You forget to tie knots, forget to check your boots, forget to scan the tree line. You nod off on guard duty, jerking awake when your head dips forward, praying no one saw. You forget where you put your gear, misplace ammunition, stumble over routes you should have seen. The jungle loves that. It feeds on it. Every mistake is another opening, another way for it to break you down. And still you can't get more than a few hours of broken rest at a time. Even when you do sleep, the dreams are no escape. They're feverish, vivid, filled with heat and noise. You dream of water, of drowning in mud, of being bitten by swarms of insects you can't see. You dream of home, but it's twisted, warped by the jungle. Your bed soaking wet, your sheets crawling with ants, your pillow filled with leashes. You wake sweating, heart pounding, and realise you're still in the same place, surrounded by the same noises, lying on the same miserable excuse for a bed. Dreams don't save you here. They just remind you of what you've lost. By the time you've been out long enough, you stop caring where you sleep. Ground, log, hammock, platform. It doesn't matter. You drop where you can, curl into yourself, and pray for just an hour of oblivion. You know you'll wake sore, wet, bitten, covered in mud, but you don't care. The body demands what the jungle refuses to give, and eventually, exhaustion wins. You fall asleep with your rifle still clutched in your hands, mud streaked across your face, ants crawling across your boots, and you tell yourself it's enough. Because out here, it has to be. Night should be the time when the jungle calms down, when the heat eases, when the world goes quiet enough to let you rest. But the jungle doesn't care about your ideas of night. It comes alive in ways that make you wish daylight never ended. You think the enemy is your biggest threat out here. Then the sun goes down and you realise the real army marching against you has more legs, sharper teeth, and better numbers than anything with a rifle. The first wave is always the ants. They don't come one at a time. They come in columns, endless black rivers that stretch from tree roots across the ground, through your shelter, up your pack, over your boots. You shine a light and see the ground shimmering, alive, every inch crawling with movement. You stomp on them, scrape them away, dump water on them, but it doesn't matter. More come. They bite in unison, sinking their jaws into your skin, leaving you hopping in the mud, smacking your legs, cursing loud enough to wake everyone around you. The fire ants are the worst. Their sting feels like hot needles jabbing deep, and once they latch on, they don't let go. You swat one off, and it leaves part of itself behind, still burning. You scratch until your skin is raw, and the ants just keep marching. When the ants thin out, the rats take over. They've been watching you since dusk, waiting until you're too tired to care. They slip into your shelter, noses twitching, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. You hear them before you see them, scratching claws against bamboo, the squeak of teeth gnawing through rations, the soft scurry of bodies across your gear. You roll over, and one runs across your chest, claws digging into your shirt as it leaps to the ground. You jolt upright, heart hammering, rifle clutched tight, only to realise you're surrounded. Rats on your pack, rats on your boots, rats darting in and out of the shadows like they own the place. They chew through anything. Plastic, cloth, even wood. They rip open ration packs, leave droppings in your helmet, piss on your sleeping mat. You wake to the smell, sharp and sour, worse than the rot of the jungle itself. Some get bold enough to chew while you're still there, gnawing the corner of a box right under your arm. You shove them, kick them, throw rocks at them, and they scatter for a second, squealing, only to come back from another angle. They're not scared, they're hungry, and you're just another obstacle between them and food. It's not just ants and rats, the night parade is endless. Cockroaches the size of your thumb scuttle across your chest, wings fluttering as they take off in the dark. Beetles drop from trees, landing with a thud against your helmet, legs clawing at the straps as you rip them away. Moths the size of your hand beat against your face, drawn to the faintest flicker of light. Spiders crawl into your boots, waiting until you slip them on in the morning to sink their fangs into your toes. You check everything before you touch it. Shake your boots, shake your pack, Shake your helmet, because forgetting once means waking up with a venomous bite that swells until you can barely walk, and still, the rats keep coming. You lie awake listening to them squeak, listening to them fight over scraps, listening to them gnaw through your gear. Some men try traps, makeshift cages, nooses, sharpened sticks, but there are too many. Kill one and 3 more appear. You fall asleep with your rifle across your chest, and you wake to the sound of claws scratching right next to your head. You swat blindly, grab something furry, and hurl it into the dark. It lands with a squeal, but you know it will be back. They always come back. The ants and the rats don't compete. They coexist like the jungle's own night shift. The ants march through, the rats skirt around them, and you're caught in between, swatting, kicking, scratching, cursing. Your skin is covered in bites, your gear streaked with droppings, your rations shredded. You thought you were fighting a war against men. At night, you realise you're fighting a war against everything. Sleep is impossible when your body is under attack from all directions. You curl tighter, pulling a poncho over your head, tucking your arms in, but the rats still crawl over you. The ants still find gaps. The bugs still buzz in your ears. You scratch until you bleed, and the blood only draws more attention. You lie in the dark, eyes wide open, listening to the chewing, the squeaking, the endless crawling, waiting for morning that never comes fast enough. The worst part is knowing it will happen again tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. There's no end to the night parade, no solution, no escape. You can kill, stomp, poison, burn, but the jungle just sends more. The pests are infinite and you're finite. Every night takes a little more out of you, a little more sleep, a little more sanity, until you're just another figure scratching in the dark, wondering if the war itself is easier to fight than the ants and the rats. The first rains feel almost like relief. The air cools slightly, the dust settles, and for a brief moment you think maybe the jungle has given you a break. That illusion lasts about 5 minutes. Then the sky opens and you realise you're in hell. Monsoon season doesn't bring rain. It brings walls of water, sheets so heavy you can't see your own hand in front of your face. It doesn't fall politely from the sky. It slams down, pounds against your helmet, hammers your shoulders, soaks through every layer until your skin feels like it's dissolving. The sound is constant. A roar, not a patter. The jungle drowns in it. Leaves shudder under the weight. Branches snap. The ground churns into liquid. You shout to the man next to you and he can't hear. You cup your hands around your mouth and yell, and still the rain drowns your words. Communication collapses into gestures, into frustrated grunts, into silent acceptance that nothing you say will carry through the storm. You hunch lower, pack heavier with water, boots sloshing, and realise the monsoon has more power than any weapon you're carrying. Your shelter, the thing you spent hours hacking together, doesn't stand a chance. The roof sags under the first hour of rain, bamboo creaking, knots loosening as the vines soak and stretch. Leaves that seem tight and layered start to drip, then pour. You try to patch it, stuffing more greenery, tightening lashings, but the water laughs at you. It finds every gap, every seam, every weakness. Soon it's streaming through in rivulets, soaking your gear, soaking your rifle, soaking your body until there's no line between you and the storm. The floor of your shelter isn't a floor anymore. It's a swamp. The mud rises, soft at first, then liquid, until you're lying in an inch of brown water. You dig drainage ditches with your entrenching tool, your hands raw, mud caked under your nails, but they fill faster than you can dig. Water pours in from the sides, seeping under the walls, filling the holes, undoing your labour in seconds. You bail with your helmet, scooping, tossing, scooping again, but it's hopeless. The rain refills it faster than you can move. You give up, sit in the muck, and let it swallow you. The smell is unbearable. Wet leaves rotting underfoot, stagnant pools growing foul within hours, mud mixed with sweat, with gear, with waste. Your uniform clings to you, never dry, sour with mildew. Your socks squish with every step. Your boots smell like dead animals, and your body itches from fungal infections creeping across your skin. The jungle is already hostile, but in the monsoon it becomes a petri dish. Every wound festers. Every rash spreads. Every bite swells into something angrier. You scratch, you bleed, and the rain washes it all into the mud, feeding it back into your skin. You can't keep anything dry. Not your clothes, not your food, not your weapon. Ammo rusts in its boxes. Bolts seize up. Cartridges swell and jam. You clean your rifle obsessively, wiping, oiling, disassembling in the rain. But moisture finds its way back in the moment you're done. You wrap everything in ponchos, in plastic, in cloth, but water seeps through all of it. When you open your pack in the morning, your spare shirt is as wet as the one on your back. Your rations soggy, your letters from home blurred into mush. The storm doesn't just soak your body, it soaks your life. The nights are worse. You lie under your collapsing roof, water dripping steadily onto your face, your chest, your legs. You curl tighter, searching for a dry spot, but there isn't one. Your bedding is saturated, your mat floating slightly, your rifle resting in a puddle beside you. You wake to find your boots half submerged, mud rising inside them, leeches wriggling happily in the warmth. You try to sleep, but the roar of the rain is deafening. The cold creeps into your bones, and every drop feels like a reminder that you don't belong here. Marching in the monsoon is torture. Trails turn into rivers, hillsides into waterfalls. You slog knee-deep through mud, every step a battle to keep your boots from being sucked off your feet. The rain blinds you, streams down your helmet, fogs your glasses if you wear them. You stumble constantly, slipping on slick roots, falling face first into muck. Packs double in weight, soak through, straps digging deeper into your shoulders. You lift one foot, then the other, trudging forward with water pouring down your back, into your eyes, into your mouth. You can't tell if you're sweating or just dissolving. And then there are the floods. Streams overflow, rivers swell, and entire camps vanish overnight. Shelters swept away, trenches swallowed, foxholes collapsing under tons of mud. You scramble to higher ground, slipping, sliding, clutching your rifle while the water surges around your legs. You drag your pack, your gear, your body, desperate to keep them from being carried off. Some men don't make it. The current catches them, pulls them under, drags them into a torrent of brown water that swallows everything. The jungle doesn't need bullets to kill. It just opens the sky. The leeches thrive in monsoon season. They float in puddles, swim in streams, climb your legs as you wade through waist-deep water. You rip them off until your fingers cramp, and still they return. Your blood runs freely, diluted into the rain, staining the mud darker. The mosquitoes don't stop either. They breed in every pool, every puddle, every stagnant trench. The rain should wash them away, but it multiplies them instead. You lie awake at night, soaked, scratching, buzzing in your ears, wondering if sleep is even possible in this place. The psychological weight of the monsoon is heavier than the physical. Days blur together under grey skies, endless sheets of water, endless mud. You forget what the sun looks like, what dry air feels like, what silence sounds like. The roar of rain becomes your world, and you stop believing it will ever end. You live in a permanent storm, trapped in a cycle of wet clothes, wet food, wet gear, wet skin. It eats at your mind until you can't remember what normal is. You start to think maybe there isn't a normal. Maybe this is all there ever was. Men break in the monsoon. Strong men, steady men, the ones who seemed unshakable in the dry season. They crack when the rain won't stop, when their shelters collapse night after night, when their bodies rot slowly under the constant damp. You see it in their eyes, the hollow stare, the slack posture, the muttered curses that turn into silence. The jungle doesn't break you all at once. It wears you down with water, one drop at a time, until you're hollow inside. You keep building, keep digging, keep patching, even though you know it's useless. You lash bamboo tighter, stack leaves higher, dig ditches deeper, but the storm always wins. The water always finds a way in. You tell yourself you'll do better tomorrow, but tomorrow is just more rain, more mud, more collapse. The monsoon doesn't pass quickly. It lingers, relentless, turning weeks into months, months into an eternity of grey. And when the sky is finally clear, when the sun does break through for a few hours, it's not relief. It's shock. You squint against the brightness, shield your eyes, feel the heat burning against your damp skin. The mud starts to dry, cracking, hardening, only to split and swallow you again in the next storm. You don't trust the sun anymore. You don't believe in it. You know the rain is waiting, ready to come back, ready to remind you who's in charge. Out here the monsoon isn't weather. It's a weapon. It soaks your body, your gear, your spirit. It erases everything you build, everything you try, everything you are. You fight it, you curse it, you suffer under it, and still it falls, hour after hour, day after day, until the jungle isn't a jungle anymore. It's just water, mud, and the slow drowning of everything human in you. Every inch of ground out here is suspect. Every step feels like a gamble. You're not just walking through mud, vines, and roots. You're walking through someone else's design. The jungle itself is already hostile, but the enemy learned long ago how to weaponize it. They didn't need tanks or planes to make life miserable. They needed patience, bamboo, and a cruel imagination. And once they buried their work beneath the leaves, you stopped seeing the ground as ground. You saw it as death waiting for the weight of your boot. The first kind you hear about are punji pits. Simple holes dug into the ground, maybe 3 feet deep, lined with sharpened bamboo stakes. The tips are hardened in fire, then smeared with filth, mud, feces, rotting meat. So even if the wound doesn't kill you, the infection probably will. Covered lightly with leaves, grass, or thin mats, they look like solid ground until you put your weight on them. And the moment you do, the cover gives way, and you're falling, legs flailing, only to be impaled on sharpened stakes that drive through boots, flesh, bone. Some men scream, others just collapse, shock taking their voice before the pain. Getting them out is a nightmare. Pulling a man up while bamboo stakes tear deeper into his legs. Blood pouring. dirt crumbling beneath your hands. You carry him out, but you know what's coming next. Fever, infection, the slow rot that medicine rarely stops in time. But Punji pits are only one part of it. Tripwires stretch low across trails, nearly invisible in the undergrowth. You're marching, sweating, eyes darting side to side, and then your boot catches on something thin. Before your brain registers it, the jungle erupts. Grenades rigged to wires, bamboo whips studded with spikes, mines buried shallow under leaves, all triggered by the smallest tug. The explosion is deafening. The air fills with dirt, fire and screams. And in that moment, every man behind the blast freezes. Because if there was one tripwire, there are more. No one wants to move, no one wants to breathe, but you can't stay frozen forever. You have to step forward again, and the cycle starts over. Some traps don't kill. They're designed to maim. A bamboo spike swinging down from above, slamming into your chest, shoulder, or face. Boards studded with nails buried shallow, so they rip through the soles of your boots. Small mines that blow off a foot, a hand, leaving you alive but broken, leaving your buddies to carry you, slowing everyone down. The cruelty isn't in the death. It's in the aftermath. One wounded man drags 4 others into his survival, forcing them to carry him, protect him, nurse him. The jungle doesn't just swallow one man, it swallows whole squads at once. You learn to scan the ground constantly. Eyes darting down, sweeping across every patch of leaves, every odd mound, every vine stretched across the path. You poke with sticks, sweep the brush with your rifle barrel, prod the earth before you step. It doesn't matter. The traps are too well hidden. The Viet Cong know the jungle better than you ever will. They plant them where you'll least expect. At bends in trails at the base of hills, just outside camp perimeters. You can't predict them. You can only fear them. The paranoia becomes constant. You see traps where there aren't any. Every twig looks like a tripwire. Every pile of leaves like a cover for spikes. Your heart jumps with every misstep, every snap of a branch underfoot. You sweat more from fear than from heat. Your stomach clenched tight, your body on edge. You start walking slower, slower still, until every step feels like it takes a lifetime. But the jungle doesn't let you slow down forever. You have to move, and moving means risking it. The stories spread fast. A man takes a step, the ground gives, and he's gone before anyone even reaches him. Another patrol caught in an ambush, half of them shredded by their own weight, setting off mines. Men screaming, begging for medics, clutching legs that are no longer there. You don't need to see it yourself. You hear it often enough that your brain fills in the images. Every scream echoes in your head at night, mixed with the sound of rain, the buzz of mosquitoes, the creak of bamboo in your shelter. You don't just fear the traps when you're awake. You dream about them. Even camp isn't safe. You think once you've cleared a perimeter, dug your trenches, built your shelters, you can relax. Then someone stumbles onto a hidden stake, a wire tied to a grenade, a mine buried in what looked like untouched dirt. The enemy slips in under cover of night, plants new traps, and slips out again. You wake to explosions, shouts, men scrambling, and you realise there is no safe ground. Not inside camp, not outside. Nowhere. And it's not just what's underfoot. Some traps hang above you. Bamboo spears rigged to swing down when a vine is tripped. Rocks balanced precariously, waiting to fall with crushing weight. Spiked boards hidden in trees, set to drop the moment a rope is pulled. You learn to look up as much as you look down, but the jungle canopy hides everything. You can't watch every angle at once. You can't protect yourself from all directions. You just keep moving, praying the one step you take isn't the one that ends you. The cruelest part isn't even the pain. It's the knowledge that someone built it by hand. Someone cut the bamboo, carved the spikes, smeared the filth, strung the wire. Someone thought about where you'd walk, where you'd step, how your body would fall. It's personal, intimate, like the enemy reached into your future and set a trap just for you. Every time you see one sprung, every time you pull a screaming man out of a pit, you know that someone is out there smiling, satisfied their design worked. The monsoon makes it worse. Water floods the trails, covers the pits, hides the wires. Mud conceals everything under a fresh layer of brown. You wade through waist-deep water, unable to see the bottom, knowing something sharp could be waiting for your foot. You can't test every inch. You just push forward, blind, and hope you make it to the other side. Every splash sounds like a warning. Every bubble in the mud feels like a trigger. After a while, you stop thinking about what's beneath your feet. If you let yourself dwell on it, you'd freeze. You'd refuse to move. And freezing is just another kind of death. So you keep walking, each step a gamble you don't acknowledge, each crunch of leaves another coin flip. You learn to live with the fear, not to conquer it. The jungle is wired against you, and all you can do is step forward anyway. At night, lying under your sagging roof, the thought doesn't leave you. Tomorrow you'll march again. Tomorrow you'll put your boot down on ground that may or may not hold. Tomorrow might be your step, your pit, your wire. You don't tell anyone. You don't have to. Every man around you is thinking the same thing. And in the silence between the rain and the buzzing insects, the jungle seems to whisper it back. Every step is borrowed time. 2 a.m. is supposed to be the deadest hour. Back home, it's when the world feels asleep. Streets empty, houses dark, silence so thick you can hear your own heartbeat. Out here, 2 a.m. is the opposite. The jungle doesn't rest. It screams, it hums, it groans, it explodes with life. And when you're lying in the mud, soaked through, half asleep with a rifle across your chest, the noise doesn't just keep you awake. It eats into your nerves until you can't tell which sounds are natural and which ones are coming for you. The insects start it. A shrill wall of buzzing, chirping, clicking, so constant it doesn't even sound like individual creatures anymore. It's a single roar, a high-pitched drone that fills your skull. Cicadas scream from every direction, so loud it's like the trees themselves are vibrating. Crickets layer their rhythm over it, uneven, sharp, relentless. Beetles thud against your shelter, wings rattling like loose screws. Moths the size of your hand flap heavy against your face if you dare light so much as a candle. You lie in the dark, covered in damp netting that doesn't work, and it feels like the insects are inside your ears, gnawing at your brain. Then the frogs join in. Not a few scattered croaks, but a chorus, a symphony of guttural bellowing that rises and falls in waves. Some croak low, like engines idling. Others shriek high, like squeaky hinges. Together they make a sound so thick it rattles your ribs. You'd swear the swamp was filled with hundreds of them, piled on top of each other, each one competing to be louder than the rest. You cover your ears, but it doesn't matter. The sound seeps through your bones. Birds don't sleep either. Not the gentle songbirds of home, but creatures that shriek, scream, and wail like someone being tortured just beyond the trees. Their cries pierce the wall of insects and frogs, cutting straight through your skull. Sometimes they're close, right above your shelter, so sudden and sharp you jolt upright, convinced it's a human scream. Other times they echo from far off, drawn out and eerie, leaving you staring into the dark, wondering if you're imagining it. And then come the mammals. Monkeys howl in the distance, their voices rising and falling like demented laughter. You've never heard anything like it back home, and the first time it freezes you in place. It doesn't sound like an animal. It sounds human, mocking, angry, unhinged. They swing through trees overhead, branches creaking, leaves shaking, sometimes dropping fruit that slams into the ground like a grenade going off. You grip your rifle tighter, heart racing, until you realise it's just monkeys. But even when you know the sound doesn't sit right, it never will. All of that is bad enough, but the worst noise isn't the animals. It's the things you can't identify. Rustles in the underbrush, splashes in puddles just beyond sight, branches snapping, leaves crunching, the subtle, steady sound of something moving. You freeze, every muscle tight, eyes straining into the dark. You whisper to yourself that it's just another animal, another rat, another snake, but your brain won't believe it. Not out here. Not at 2 a.m, when the Viet Cong could be 20 feet away, crouched low, listening to the same noises you are. That's when silence is worse than sound. Sometimes the jungle stops, the frogs cut off, the insects go quiet, the birds hold their screams. And in that silence you feel exposed. Every breath you take feels too loud. Every shift of your body is a thunderclap. You wait, ears straining, knowing silence in the jungle is never natural. Something caused it. Something is near. And when the sound resumes, exploding back all at once, you don't feel relieved. You feel tricked, like the jungle just reminded you who controls the rhythm here. The rain adds another layer. Sometimes it's a drizzle, dripping steady from leaves, masking everything else in a rhythm you can almost get lost in. Other times it's a downpour, hammering on your roof, slapping against the mud, drowning out every other sound until you're blind and deaf in the storm. You can't hear movement, can't hear voices, can't even hear your own thoughts. The rain owns the night, and you lie there soaked, clutching your rifle, telling yourself nothing can move in this deluge. And then you remember they can, because they live here, because they have always lived here, and the noise of the storm is as much cover for them as it is for you. Sleep is impossible. Your body begs for it, eyelids heavy, muscles trembling. But every noise jolts you awake again. You drift off for seconds at a time, only to snap back, heart racing, convinced that rustle, that crack, that shriek was something coming for you. Your nerves fray. You scratch, slap at mosquitoes, shift in the mud, trying to find a position that doesn't ache. The jungle doesn't let you. It keeps you suspended in half consciousness. Your body exhausted, but your mind trapped in constant vigilance. Some men grow numb to it. They lie back, eyes half closed, letting the noise wash over them until it becomes background. They sleep through screams, through howls, through explosions of sound that would make anyone else sit bolt upright. Others never adapt. They stare into the dark all night, fists clenched around rifles, waiting for something that may or may not come. By morning they look hollow, skin pale, eyes ringed with exhaustion. The jungle doesn't care which kind of man you are. It will take your rest either way. And then, sometimes, it really is the enemy. The crack wasn't a branch. The rustle wasn't a rat. The silence wasn't random. You hear a burst of gunfire, shouts in a language you don't understand, explosions ripping the night apart. The noise of the jungle swallows it as fast as it came. But the damage is done. Men bleeding, shelters torn apart, chaos spilling across the camp. And then, just as quickly, the jungle returns to normal. Frogs croak, insects buzz, birds scream. The noise carries on like nothing happened, as if it was all just part of the soundtrack. That's the worst part. The jungle noise never tells you the truth. It hides danger as easily as it announces it. You never know if you're listening to nature or to men. You never know if the scream overhead is a bird or a warning. You never know if that rustle in the brush is a rat or a rifle barrel. You live in a state of permanent uncertainty, where every sound means everything and nothing at once. 2 a.m. isn't rest, it's limbo. And when morning finally comes, when the grey light filters through the canopy and the noise shifts from nighttime chaos to daytime chaos, you don't feel relief. You just feel tired. The frogs stop. The birds change their songs. The insects buzz in a slightly different pitch. But it's still noise, still constant, still pressing against your ears. You drag yourself upright, rub mud from your face, adjust your pack, and start the day already broken. The jungle doesn't give you silence, not at 2 a.m, not ever. You spend hours building it, cutting bamboo until your palms are raw, hauling poles through sucking mud, weaving leaves and vines into something that looks like it might hold. You lash it all together with knots that never feel tight enough, sweating through your uniform, swatting mosquitoes with one hand while tying with the other. By the time it's standing, your whole body is shaking from exhaustion. Your back screams, and your arms feel hollow. You look at it and tell yourself it's worth it. You've carved out a place that's yours, a square of order in the middle of chaos. You think maybe you'll get a night of rest. Then the rain starts, always the rain. Heavy drops pound the roof, sliding through seams you thought you sealed, dripping onto your chest, your pack, your rifle. The water pools in corners, seeps under the walls, rises into the floor until your bedding is floating in mud. You shove rocks under the frame, dig frantic ditches, pile leaves on top, but nothing holds it back. The rain laughs at your work, cutting through it like it isn't even there. And you realise your shelter was never more than a delay, never more than a speed bump for the storm. It isn't just water that ruins it. The jungle itself doesn't respect boundaries. Ants march through the walls, straight across your body, biting until you're awake and cursing. Rats chew through the roof, dropping into your lap in the dark, their claws scratching across your thighs before they vanish again. Snakes curl under the platform, scales rasping against bamboo. Spiders squat in the corners, eyes reflecting faint light. Webs glistening where you thought you were safe. The shelter doesn't keep them out, it invites them in. You've built a home, but not for yourself. And then there's the fear that someone else is watching. You've camouflaged it, layered leaves across the roof, lashed vines to break up the shape, but you never really believe it's invisible. From inside, every gap feels like a spotlight, every faint glow of a cigarette ember, every flicker of a match, every cough echoes too loudly. You lie on your mat, staring at the roof sagging inches above your face, and wonder if eyes are already on you. if your illusion of safety is just painting a target over your head. The roof groans in the night, knots tightening and loosening with every gust of wind, every drop of water. You listen to it creak, waiting for the moment it gives. Sometimes it does. The whole frame collapses in on you. Wet leaves and bamboo poles slamming down, pinning you in the mud. You scramble out, dripping, furious, too tired to rebuild but too scared not to. You lash it back together with shaking hands, vines cutting deeper into your palms, rain stinging your face. By the time it's standing again, the sky is starting to lighten, and you've had no sleep at all. Day doesn't make it better. The sun bakes the wet bamboo until it cracks. The leaves curl and brown. The vines loosen as they dry. You patch it constantly, never caught up, always behind. The shelter is alive, decaying the moment it's built, demanding more work every day. You thought you built it to rest. Instead it becomes another endless chore, a cycle that never ends. Cut, haul, lash, patch, repeat. By the time you sit down, it's already sagging again. The illusion isn't just physical, it's psychological. Crawling under that roof, no matter how flimsy, tricked you for a second into thinking you're hidden, protected, separate from the jungle. You tell yourself you've created a line, however thin, between yourself and everything out there. Between the rain, the mud, the bugs, the noise. Between you and death. But you know it isn't real. The jungle doesn't care about your walls. Bullets don't care about bamboo. Traps don't care about roofs. The shelter keeps nothing out. It just gives you the smallest scrap of comfort so you don't break completely. Sometimes you almost believe in it. The rain is lighter than usual, the roof holds, the walls stay upright. You lie back, dripping but not drowned, tired but not exposed. You close your eyes and pretend you're inside something that matters, and then a rat runs across your chest, or water seeps into your pack, or a frog croaks so loud inches from your ear it jolts you awake. The illusion shatters instantly. You're reminded that your home here isn't home. It's camouflage draped over suffering. You start measuring safety in seconds. If the roof holds until morning, you call it good. If the mud only soaks your legs instead of your whole body, you call it good. If nothing bites you in the face tonight, you call it good. The shelter doesn't last. It was never meant to. You rebuild it every day, knowing it will fail again. But you keep doing it anyway. Because without it, you'd have nothing. And nothing out here is worse than the weakest illusion. Even when it stands, you don't relax. You lie awake, staring into the dark, ears tuned to every creak, every rustle, every drop. Your rifle rests across your chest, your boots by your side, your pack strapped shut. You're inside the shelter, but you never feel inside anything. The walls don't protect you. They just give you something to stare at while you wait for the jungle to remind you who's in charge. And it always does. Every storm, every invasion of bugs, every collapse of knots and bamboo remind you the truth. The shelter isn't safety, it's theatre. It's something you build to trick yourself into moving forward one more day. It's a lie you live inside, knowing all the while that the jungle can tear it down in seconds. Survival in the jungle isn't about winning. It isn't about finishing a mission or breaking through some invisible line. It's smaller than that. Petty. Miserable. Survival is about getting through one more day without being drowned, bitten, shot, or blown apart. You drag yourself through the mud, patch your shelter, choke down rations, and convince yourself you've made progress. But deep down, you know the truth. All you've really done is buy another night of discomfort, another morning of exhaustion. Daylight doesn't bring relief. It just changes the shape of the misery. You wake with your body aching from the mud, your clothes plastered to your skin, your boots heavier with water. You scratch at bites that never heal, rub at rashes that spread no matter what you do, adjust straps that dig deeper into your shoulders every hour. You stretch, groaning, already dreading the march ahead. Then you shoulder your pack, grip your rifle, and step out into another cycle of heat, insects, and paranoia. The sun beats down harder than you expect in a jungle. The canopy filters it, but the humidity traps it, turning the air into a steam bath. Sweat pours until your uniform is soaked, indistinguishable from the rain that fell the night before. Your body stinks of mildew, rot, and chemicals from the repellent that doesn't work. You swat mosquitoes that ignore it anyway, slap leeches until your hands are streaked with blood, scrape mud from your legs, only to be swallowed by more mud 2 steps later. Every part of the day is spent battling the same elements that beat you yesterday, and you already know they'll beat you tomorrow. Food doesn't help. You chew dry crackers that crumble like dust, swallow greasy meat that tastes worse warmed up than cold, sip coffee that burns your tongue but doesn't make you feel awake. You eat fast, crouched low, staring at the tree line, every sound making your stomach clench tighter. You're never really hungry, not out here. The heat, the stench, the fear, they kill your appetite. You eat because you have to, not because you want to. You force it down, gagging sometimes, wishing for anything that tastes like home. But there's nothing of home left in this place. Only fuel. Marching becomes routine, the worst kind. Step after step, mile after mile, boots squelching, shoulders burning, eyes scanning. You don't talk much. Words waste breath. All you do is listen to your own footsteps, to the creak of gear, to the endless noise of the jungle. Every step feels like an invitation to disaster. You test the ground, poke with a stick, pray you don't find a wire or a pit. And when you don't, you just do it again, over and over. The tension builds until your whole body feels wired, your stomach twisted, your brain buzzing from the constant edge. When contact comes, it's sudden, an explosion from nowhere, a burst of gunfire that echoes so loudly you can't even tell where it came from. Men hit the ground, mud splashing into their faces, rifles up, eyes scanning. You fire into the trees, into shadows, into places where maybe, just maybe, someone is hiding. Then it's over as fast as it started. Silence, except for the pounding in your chest and the ringing in your ears. You look around, see who's still standing, who isn't, and then you keep moving. Because stopping means dying too. Even without contact, paranoia gnaws at you all day. You stare at shadows that move when the wind blows, at branches that sway just enough to make you raise your rifle. You hear noises behind you, to the side, above you. Sometimes they're just animals. Sometimes they're not. You never know until it's too late. So you keep walking, keep sweating, keep cursing under your breath. The jungle doesn't care about your nerves. It feeds on them. When the sun starts to dip, you think maybe the day is over. You set up another shelter, cut more bamboo, lash more vines, pile more leaves. You patch what broke, dig new drainage, shake out boots crawling with bugs. You sit on your pack, shoulders slumped, eyes heavy, and force yourself to eat again. The food tastes worse at night, when the stink of rot and smoke hangs thicker. You chew anyway, not even tasting it, just swallowing fuel to keep your body moving. Night doesn't mean rest. It means another round of the same torment you lived last night. Mosquitoes swarming, rats crawling across your chest, ants biting your ankles until you slap at them in the dark. You lie under a roof that drips on your forehead, in a shelter that sags lower every hour. You clutch your rifle, eyes half shut, ears straining at the endless noise. The frogs, the insects, the shrieking birds, the rustle that might be rats or might be men. You tell yourself you'll get a few hours of sleep. You don't. You drift in and out, dreams feverish, waking to bites, to drips, to creaks that sound too much like footsteps. When dawn comes, you're not rested. You're just older, sorer, more drained. You sit up in the mud, stretch your aching back, wipe your face with hands that stink of mildew, and tell yourself you survived. That's the only victory. You made it one more day. And then you realise what that means. You have to do it all again. Another day of mud, rain, insects, traps, paranoia. Another night of noise, wet, and creatures crawling across your skin. Survival isn't triumph here, it's repetition. And repetition is the cruelest part. The jungle doesn't kill you all at once. It grinds you down. It rots your boots until your feet are raw. It soaks your clothes until your skin blisters. It fills your ears until your head aches. It chews away at you, piece by piece, until you're too tired to fight, too tired to care. You survive today, but you dread tomorrow. Because tomorrow is never different. Tomorrow is just more of the same. And eventually, you start to wonder if surviving is really the same thing as living. And that's where we'll leave it tonight. A damp roof sagging over your head, boots caked in mud, a stomach full of rations that taste like nothing you ever wanted to eat, and the constant hum of the jungle reminding you you're not in charge here. If you've made it this far, you've already survived more than most. Not because you conquered anything, but because you endured it for one more night. Thank you for sticking with me through this slow march into discomfort. If you found it strangely relaxing, hit like, subscribe, or let me know in the comments where you're listening from. I always enjoy seeing how far these stories travel, even if they're mostly about misery. For now, close your eyes, let the sounds fade into background, and drift. Tomorrow will be just as heavy, but that's tomorrow's problem. Tonight, you can rest.